All right, good morning, everybody. It's the goal setting meeting for fiscal 2025. Looks like we have some public here, so if there's anything that they'd like to speak to, it's not a regular meeting, so we won't be having regular interactions throughout the meeting. But if there's anything they'd like to bring up before online or in person here before we start the meeting. Okay, everybody online?
We have people online, but I have not been flagged that anyone wants to speak.
Okay, here's your chance, guys. If you want to weigh in, happy for you to raise a hand. Okay.
Okay, hey, good morning, everyone. So you've got a slideshow that we'll work through. I think we've got about neighborhood of about an hour and 45 minutes to get through all of the content on this, which should lead to the very end, the goals that you want to set for organization-wide and stuff for fiscal 2025. Okay, what we'll do initially is walk through the information, high level that the department's presented over the last few days, address some questions you guys have on those, and then we'll move into a discussion of the priorities that the three of you have as you listen to all that, as well as other things that you have on your mind and you want to make sure that we're speaking to. Then we'll go ahead and go through the fiscal 24 goals and talk about where those are, what you might want to change, and then go into that information background. Go ahead, set your goals for 2025. Okay.
Great.
Then after that, we've got some other business as well. Okay. Last year, you recall we talked about future trends, and what you're going to see in these slides is whatever is prior year content is regular font, and that is new is in bold italics. Okay, so there's trends certainly for population growth. We're forecasting in the assumptions over an extended period of time 2%. The Portland State number is around 1%. Historically, that number has been low. So looking at 2% growth, which is consistent with the last decade with the county. Operating in a post-pandemic world, there's a lot of issues associated with that. We talked about the loss of respect for authority and for government in general, increased violence that we're seeing in society. Talked about quite a bit over the last several days is this increase in drug and mental health related activities and how that's impacting our judicial system and our public safety operations. The political and social fragmentation of society, the increased risk of terrorism, both internationally and domestically. The 24-hour news cycle, where it's great to be first, but not necessarily right, and how that is impacting people's perspectives. Inflation and rising costs of products and services. And although inflation has come down from its peak, it's still well above where the Fed target rate is. Organizational wide issues, governance and administration, things that have changed. We added the county administrator position, have the pending governance decision. We lack unanimity on both. That's just where we are as an organization. Recruitment and retention, we've enhanced some recruiting processes. The HR roadmap and staff recognizes the need for additional improvements in that area from really the beginning of all recruiting, first steps all the way through to exit interview process. Facilities planning and development, we have an initial framework and concepts identified that go beyond the Justice Center. It would include the courthouse and annex to that particular building, and then some additional facilities that, we recognize are necessary, and, again, a framework for how to proceed. There's refinement and financing plan that really become the next steps. We talked about technology upgrades and service support last year. We made considerable progress here, getting, our CIO leadership on board. There's been internal advancements, promotions. We're in a process right now of recruiting some key positions. The network infrastructure upgrades are in process. This would be, housed in the Justice Center is a big chunk of that. Ultimately provides for the redundancy and so forth to have us operate in the cloud at the speeds and at the capacity that are needed. We have our enterprise resource planning, the accounting software, that's a soft go live April 1st, and go live countywide May 1st. The HRIS demonstrations we'll have in the next 30 days, and with the acquisition of that human resource information systems in the fourth quarter, April, May timeframe. Fleet and asset management. We have the initial documentation of department interest that was completed in Q1 by Jeff Hurd. That is work that, Brad is working through now with the departments, just to refine that and ensure level of interest, and then begin to look at software and so forth that might help manage that, whether it's a centralized management, whether it's decentralized, whether it's done up at the new facility. We understand that the current facilities aren't adequate to take on all the vehicles, but that's a lot of work to kind of put together a plan and decide whether it's something to be done internally or externally. But certainly the concept of getting to where we have asset management as somebody with that responsibility is, I think, key to this conversation. And that's both fleet and buildings. Communication strategy, we did an initial strategy that was communicated to you in Q2. There's incremental rollout in January 24. That started, you're seeing more of that on the website. And so these meetings, for example, are available online in video format. The financial strategic planning, you've got the 5-year forecast prepared on a countywide basis. We've aligned the resources to fit where, the demand for that funding is, and set up the structure so that the folks that have those responsibilities can manage the resources coming in the long term, and it becomes more of them operating their business within the resources allocated. Long-range financial planning, this is going out beyond the 5 years. We've got the transportation system plan, and that in the past was kind of a technical document that was used not so much by staff. This plan is really to be used more in line with what are the needs, both for the capital expansion needs, but also how do we fund and have a financial plan for operating the transportation system on an ongoing basis to the desired level of service. That'll be a 20-year look. The solid waste master plan update, that also is a 20-year look at what the needs are for the organization, and that includes the financial component. It'll lay out what the rate needs are going to be, with the given assumptions. Facilities plan, and we've started on that. We've got certainly the plan of moving a large segment of the organization into the Justice Center. And then you have a framework then for the courthouse renovation, as well as potentially an additional building on the side of that will house just about all operations, with the exception of road, library, fairgrounds, and landfill. And then fleet documentation, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of, we at least have some concept in the 5-year planning of when we're going to need to be replacing some vehicles. It needs to certainly be fine-tuned and incorporated into more of a tool specific for that purpose. Okay, thank you. We talked about basic service delivery last year, day-to-day operations and service delivery. having those be at the best level they can be with the allocated funding. I think throughout the organization, you've seen improvements in, I think, most areas. There's a few areas that certainly need some attention, but, you know, on an overall basis, I think there's improvements going on throughout the organization. What is the defined level of service you wish to provide? You know, this is a work in progress. This is something that's gonna take time. You're seeing the stats that are starting to be developed in terms of these activity levels that are being reported back to you, that are being tracked on a quarterly basis, potentially can get down to monthly and so forth, to give you the information to help you analyze what is an acceptable level of service. And, you know, you start having all these numbers, and you're gonna start new ERP, you're going to start quantifying what does it cost to provide certain levels of service, for example, circulation at given, you know, rate. But you don't have the infrastructure to make that an easy thing to do now. So all this infrastructure, technology-wise, and so forth, you're putting in the systems, reporting, so forth, are designed to ultimately get you to the point where you can this is being presented to you as decision makers on what you want to do. How do you know if you're meeting those standards? And this gets back to, we've implemented the performance measures, the reporting activity levels, and this is an ongoing process. It's the first iteration of this. A lot of these things aren't necessarily performance measures, but those will, as you start to get the information, they start to evolve, and you'll see more and more of this. Systemic issues, you know, a lot of conversation last year about, you know, the organization itself operating in a silo environment. I think, you know, with the introduction of, you know, the regular meetings with the department heads and so forth, the engagement with them, the policy framework and so forth that we're working through, I think you're seeing those walls, you know, walls come down a little bit. And there's certainly still, you know, the operation within the silo, but it's trending in the right direction, and I would expect that will continue to be the case. You know, the lack of the overall organizational strategy, I think that is, you know, work, again, it's in progress. You've got the infrastructure, again, to work towards getting to where you are making these decisions on an organization-wide basis rather than department by department. Division of administrative direction and leadership. You know, the framework is in place. Again, we lack that unanimity of how that's going to work. And that's just something that needs to be worked through and figured out. And then, you know, to, you know, your comments, I think, Susie, is, you know, whatever that vote is, wherever that is, if it's a split vote, we go that direction. If it's a unanimous vote, we go that direction. But it's got to be supported, or else it will fail. You know, the confusion of roles and responsibilities, I think that, you know, continues to remain, you know, an issue, and that's just an ongoing thing, and we'll need to get that clarified, documented, and it's just something that gets understood through repetition. Retention, recruitment in the area of compensation, you know, question mark, and we've made some improvements here. We have the study underway that shows moving from 38th to 42nd percentile, moving into the 50th to 55th percentile, and, you know, from our comparable organizations. And that plan has an incremental approach to ultimately get the organization there. Benefits, been some improvements there, the vacation stuff that we talked about, you know, the last several weeks for previous experience, making that vacation available sooner. And then there's further dialogue, I think, there that we'll talk about more later. You know, there's some comment here recently in some of the department presentations where department heads had the authority to move forward and hire a body, but they weren't hiring a body. They were being patient to make sure they're bringing the right person onto the team. And I think that's, I think, going to be long-term a very wise decision, rather than get somebody in and churn through folks and have our costs just, you know, where they're just going through and through and through, versus being patient and recognizing that it's not going to be perfect while that's, you know, taking place, but, you know, making sure we're making the right hire. The improvements needed in recruiting, there's a pretty comprehensive, discussion of that in the roadmap that, we have a draft of. We also have, a couple of, folks that we've got coming onto the team to help us out, that have more recruiting experience than we have presently, that I think will help us improve those processes. Adequate staffing levels, I think we've been able to get several key leadership positions in place. I think we've had 5 or 6 different department directors over the last 18 months that have been, hired. And I think in every case, it's been, a good hire and good for the organization overall, as well as that department. Again, I think from a staffing level standpoint, I think we've seen improvements throughout most areas within the county. We're not at where I know some of the desired place would be. You saw community development with about a 25% reduction in FTEs with vacancies, but given the slowdown in development, that's actually a positive thing because it's been done without layoffs. It's been done through just attrition. In the sheriff's office, they're continuing to, add staffing. And then in Terry's office, they're getting there. It's just an ongoing churn right now in a few of the positions. All departments have, I think, expanded their training and development opportunities. The compensation study, one of the things that's built into that is career ladders. So that there's the ability for somebody to come in at wherever they are in the organization, the ability for them to not go to the end of the step and be done, but if they're doing the additional responsibilities and taking the additional initiative, the ability for them to move up into higher compensated positions. Facilities planning development, the Justice Center is scheduled for completion June, July of this year. And then we've got the logistics of getting everybody moved, and then what do we do with the vacated space and how do we handle that? That's something that'll be done over the next few months. The space needs assessment, that was something we completed at the end of last fiscal year and talked about the first part of this fiscal year. It's most part completed with the exception of road, library, fairgrounds again, and landfill. The courthouse remodel, community development building, we've got that concept framework completed. I think, it's not that far off from having information to you to be able to make a decision on bringing on a architect to go ahead and move forward with the design for that particular building. Part of that is waiting on a decision on the Justice Center so we can get that funding agreement signed and move forward. And then, determining the uses of existing buildings, there's been some dialogue in there, but nothing certainly in terms of direction or decision-making. On the technology front, you can mention, the CIO on board, internal promotion, recruitment of key positions, ERP go live and the HRS in process. Cybersecurity, they've made those enhancements. Service delivery, we're completing due diligence, recommendation pending. This is to outsource the level 1 support organization wide. Capital asset management, again, additional discussions, requirements, scheduling is necessary. And training, there's been some training in the area of IT in terms of onboarding, getting people where they're at least able to, be able to sign on and know what the applications are and so forth. Beyond that, there's definitely need for improvement there, and some discussion at from an HR facilitated perspective. And is that something that we want HR to figure out and help put in place, or is that something that the departments are going to do, or is that something IT, or is it, more of a collaboration group effort? But we certainly know when we go live with the ERP, HRIS, there will be significant training, bringing those applications on board. And at that time, likely a conversation about the other applications that are necessary for training. Fleet management, we talked about this pending evaluation. How do we finance this? The replacement schedule. We've initiated significant replacement in the current year. The sheriff's office fleet is, I think, almost all the vehicles that were needing replacement based on their mileage and so forth. I believe we have all of those replaced. And their standard operating fleet now is within those realms, and then going out the next 5 years, there is incremental additions that are scheduled. The thing that's gonna happen is 5, 6 years from now, when the fleet that they just bought is all coming for replacement at the same time, how do we replace that? The good news is that at that point in time, you're gonna see more resources available that should be able to give you some more flexibility on how you ultimately do that. And then, the comment here, what do your vehicles say about the organization? And heard a little bit about that yesterday, with Erica. It's not a positive thing to be thinking that she might be, for her staff, others maybe out stranded, looking for, an Uber, or a sheriff's call. So, getting those things taken care of so that, we are operating with a fleet that is, works well, shows that we're taking care of things, they're washed, all of those things. They speak well of the organization, the same thing with respect to your buildings. You've got a lot of buildings that are old, for maintenance, and so forth, getting the library clock fixed, and then, the patio fixed, showing them taking care of those things, and then getting the courthouse taken care of, and so forth. I think we'll have to shift significantly within the organization and community in terms of, the perception of the organization. On the communications, a lot of conversation about this in terms of work policy, organization-wide policy and communication, what is our social media approach? Who are the spokespersons for the organization? What is the internal communication standards? What are the tools? When and how do you communicate? There has been very little progress made in this area. And the progress that we started to make, with Sarah, last year, we're in some bumps, and she's rolled out, a communications strategy at the end of last calendar year, and starting to implement that now. But it's one that needs further discussion, dialogue, and some significant decisions made on how that's gonna work. In the strategic financial plan, I think there's been considerable effort to date. A lot of discussion, information, consideration, going on at the department level, finance staff helping and facilitating that. It's an iterative process. I think we go with the 80-20 rule, we got 80% of it done a couple of years ago, another 80%. Last year, each year, you're making iterative types of improvements to make the thing work a little bit better, a little easier. I think each year, with the process of getting the information back to Jamie and the finance staff, I don't know what you're saying, keeps getting a little easier. Yeah, and with the new ERP, there will be a learning curve with that and getting that to work the way we want it to be. But once that's done, it should streamline this process, even more. Pay for all the competing demands. And again, you've got no lack of demands from your organization throughout, and figuring out how to address the funding gaps. We've identified those in the sheriff operation, the road fund, fairgrounds. Those are 3 key areas that we know exist. As we get in the general fund, the general fund looked sustainable. We will know more as we get into the impacts of the salary, study, and also looking at the impacts of the cost of the Justice Center to pay for juvenile rent and operating occupancy costs for juvenile and for the DA. The sheriff's office, we're gonna also have those occupancy costs to be accounting for into their budget. We're gonna need to be shifting a few things around to, again, provide for sustainable operations and address the goals that you've laid out. Do we have a short or long-term financial approach? I think we've, again, shown the short-term, midterm funding gaps noted above. I think those, for the most part, are manageable, until we get out, into the fiscal 28, 29, 30. Get past 30, things, assuming the data centers, continue to be here, which I see no reason why that wouldn't be the case right now. All that starts to improve dramatically beginning of around fiscal 31. And at that point, and before that point, actually, the conversation has been, you need a plan on how you deal with the surplus. So that it's not just spent and then the data center washes away and then that income stream is lost and you've built yourself up. Spending that kind of money versus setting aside the surplus to, invest and become an annuity down the road. Is the plan flexible? I think we've got contingencies in most every area, consistent with the policy that provides the flexibility to deal with unforeseen events. The next 4 or 5 years, I think just gonna require significant prudence on your point, your part not to get too far ahead, in terms of trying to address some of the, the requests. Moving to the departmental presentations. Again, a lot of this information is from last year, and then, the bold italics is some stuff in new. There's a plan in place to, to staff to the strategic plan levels for the sheriff's office. Their budget request, in the plan for fiscal 25 was to add 3 new FTEs. Their budget request going this year is to actually pause on the addition of those, and they talked to you about reclassifying, several positions, advancing those, for example, the corporals and, moving them into sergeants, and there may be a need for mental health or something along those lines once those decisions are made. Okay. The patrol vehicle replacement, we spoke about that a little bit earlier, limited needs, over the next few years, but there is, a plan to replace those vehicles and get into that mileage situation to when, or age, to go ahead and get those replaced. And then I mentioned again that in the fiscal year 2030 and above, I think you've got the capacity, flexibility to be, replacing your vehicles as need be. The training and time to street, I think that's just an ongoing structural issue. And, I didn't hear any changes to that this year. There was some discussion about, facility over in, in Bend in the Central Oregon area. That is several years out if it were ever to come to pass. And what those costs would hopefully be to operate that's an unknown at this particular point in time. But as long as we're working through the certification and continuing education process, believe, misunderstanding, you guys are gonna still have that. Recruiting new people, getting them onto the street is a continual. It takes a while to get them, ready to, to work independently. We've got to address the funding gap for the 5-year plan. Some of that is through the strategic management and also, we heard a little bit yesterday, where these vacancies ultimately occur, there is, those dollars that ultimately carry forward. And as long as they're operating consistent with prior years, which is they spend in the neighborhood of 88 to 92% of budget, I think this kind of smooths itself out and works over the next 4 to 5 years. And that's gonna be challenged with the justice center occupancy cost being thrown in, but I think it's an incremental approach as opposed to a dire situation that, needs to be figured out today. Yeah, go ahead and go to the next one. Staffing, in the district attorney's office, Carrie touched on this, in terms of, the office administrator, I think, that position's been filled. I think she's got the prosecutor, the 2 chief deputy DAs in her organization, one over civil, one over criminal. I think she's got those figured out. What she's going to do, it's the deputy DAs that are, the burn and chart thing. And I think, from a practical standpoint, that may be how the organization ends up working. And just need to figure that out. Not as an organization, is it gonna be possible to recruit and retain all DAs all the way up through a long period of time? I don't know. Much like a CPA firm or a law firm, whatever, they're bringing in the graduates, they're putting them into 60, 70, 80 hour work weeks. And they figure out whether they want to be in that line of work or they want to go out in the private sector or somewhere else. I think to a degree, like people coming in off the street into a DA position with just out of school, or they go into a law firm or what have you, they're figuring out where they want to be and what they want to do. And they're just, I think there is just churn in that young professional ranks as they come to understand what it is they want to be in life. And I'm not sure, I think that's gonna just be part of, figuring out on recruitment and retention, how that, how that works and designing it appropriately. Facilities, the need for office space is about to be gone, and they will have office space for I think the next 20+ years. Processing digital evidence, not sure if that's something that's gotten resolved or not yet, Carrie, but that was there, and I presume it's in the plans to, if it's not taken care of, to get taken care of. Juvenile, we heard about the increased activities in this area, the need for dependable vehicles, that's budgeted, ready to go forward. One of the changes in positions here is to go ahead and have to take an existing half-time position, just roll it into a full-time position. And that's gonna be the equivalent of a 0.5 FTE addition out of juvenile this year. And I think at the end of the day, we end up with, I'm remembering this right, I think we'll end up with 1.5 FTE additions. Legal, Eric was able to fill the vacancy there in his legal assistant position. Continue, things that he, legal has to deal with the changes of legislation, getting into confidential office meeting room space and so forth. That's, I think, a pending thing. Again, do we stay where we are over in the annex, bring admin over and use the juvenile space, for court as well as, the court support staff and executive support staff in that conference room, or do we do something a little bit different? So there's some decision need to be made there. And then he's got the reliable legal research databases funded. IT, again, the staff availability and turnover, finding the right skill sets to be in those key positions is a challenge, in this community, and it's one, and again, we're looking for the right people, getting them on board, the level 1 support. Again, looking at that being an outsourced function as opposed to trying to continue to recruit entry-level folks that are ultimately getting here, finding another opportunity and moving on, and needing that consistent, the ability to get good answers timely is what Stephen is presently evaluating. The continued rising cost complexity of disaster recovery. Stephen's talked to you a little bit more about that the other day, already touched on the ERP and HRIS as well as the infrastructure improvements. And then, we do have continued issues with the supply chain in terms of being able to say, this is what we need, being able to order, having it come reliably on a timely basis. HR, we've got this evolving employment law with FEMLA, or paid leave, OFLA, that continues to change. The changes in the labor force, the shortage. I think we still have a very low unemployment rate. It's a very competitive market. It's softened a little bit, and that's certainly helping us. But we still have these challenges here. In this area, in terms of making a better workplace, is providing flex work schedules, finding solutions that work more for the employee. And a flex schedule, a compressed schedule, such as we have 20% of our workforce living in Bend and Redmond that commute. A 4-day work week as opposed to a 5-day work week is something that they find very attractive. And if we could work that out, we're going through that process now to make that a potential option for folks. We've talked about housing, and We understand that's an issue not just here, but across the country. Did see a story where in some areas you're seeing the federal government come in and provide housing stipends or finding places and paying the rent for employees for a period of time to get them into the community and into the organization. Not suggesting that here, but that's the types of stuff you're gonna, maybe start seeing in terms of helping employers figure out how to address that need. The other issue there that we've heard is, childcare, and there just really aren't good solutions, presently in this area.
Along on the housing line, I met with some folks the other day, they're gonna be building these, not manufactured homes, but they build them in a factory and then build them on site. And they're looking to potentially purchase property and then work with different organizations around town to do some type of system, point system to be able to supply it to specific people. So
Is it a workforce type of housing development?
100%.
Yeah.
And then the person doesn't actually own the house. They own the house, not the land. And then when you sell it, there's still an opportunity to make a little bit of equity when you move to your next house, but then you would still keep in contact with that company and hopefully sell that next house to another county.
It's been done in Santa Barbara because Santa Barbara's so high cost of real estate. They couldn't get doctors and nurses or anything. But one of the things they do is I had my daughter's fellow friend was a dietitian there. You have to, when you do sell, there's a cap.
Yeah,
Like you can
exactly.
make a little bit, but basically, when you buy into this, that this is workforce housing. And you kind of have to be in a certain workforce, and there's a lot of hoops in it, but it's been very successful in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's off your, really.
That's all right, thank you. Again, you mentioned the HR roadmap, reviewing that right now. And there's a lot of guidance, in that particular document. The minimum staffing is funded, so we've got 3 positions, in that department that are budgeted, and I don't anticipate a change in the near term. There may be some supplemental stuff that's brought on to help get us, the HR system, up and running. And then evaluate how much need is there for that staffing going forward, given that we now moved all that information into the digital format and the process in the digital format. Next slide, thank you. This technical skills on facilities to serve the new justice center, this is likely to be, an outsourced type of situation, something we're gonna need to be moving forward on here in the near future, to have a plan in place so that when that building comes on, a lot of it's under warranty and so forth, but still need, individuals to be there that understand all of those systems and are able to take care of them from day one. Got the renovation of the old courthouse, repurposing the building. We were able to secure a pickup from the sheriff's office, so thanks to the sheriff's office for having that vehicle. Those guys were very happy. You? Finance, mentioned the ERP. You heard Christina talk about the accounts receivable application that is set up to be able to take this miscellaneous billing that's taking place in various departments to be able to house that in a centralized fashion, whether the work gets done decentralized within managed and overseen in finance to be able to track and understand when the money is supposed to come. And then, as Stephen mentioned, you get into these systems, you get systems, and then you're looking for the next enhancement. And so we've got the general ledger, the accounts payable, and the budgeting application. And one of the next one is likely something along the lines of a purchasing inventory type of application, which allows you to create purchase orders and track those all the way through the system. So we know what's on order and what recommendations are once we make the decision to buy something versus waiting until they're already paid. And what I think you have happened going around the rest of your organization, based on my previous experience elsewhere, we had systems like this, is every department's got some sort of Excel file somewhere that they're trying to track this type of stuff. So there's just additional effort that's, taking place there that, can go away, create some efficiencies. You've seen improvement in the reporting and transparency of the departments and in the public. You got the quarterly reports, that are going out, being posted, presented, to you. That includes more than just the financials, talking about how does the operation tie back into the financial aspects of things. The forecasting and management of investments, Christina talked to you about this the other day, working with an outsourced professional investment firm, updating the policy that delegates that authority, I think, to the appropriate spot, the finance director who's in place, understands the cash flow requirements of the county. And, sitting on the call, I've worked with GPA before, and actually the principal of that firm actually recognized her from about 30 whatever years ago. So good to see her again. And I think this positions the organization, rightly so, in terms of making sure that we're professionally managing the dollars as we go forward. The portfolio has increased by almost double in the last 3 years. So important, that we're maximizing the interest earnings on that. Enhanced storage solutions to move towards paperless. That gets back into moving into the cloud and so forth. There is new staff that's replacing that's retiring, and you also have a succession plan that Christine is developing, and then actively recruiting for a senior accountant position. And we had an interview yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to talk with Christine and get her thoughts on it. Her and Crystal, former finance director for Madras, and I sat in on it, yesterday, and we'll see where she thinks that should go. Health services, no real, changes in this other than the activity levels to continue to be, increasing type of thing. The space, I think she's getting crowded. It'd be ideal to have a little bit more space, particularly with, we've got the space, but it would be ideal if they were all together as opposed to one campus, and then across the street, you've got veterans and a few other staff, so you get them all into one place. And knowing that their lease runs out in 27, and Mosaic would be fine with us moving them out sooner. And I think this all ties back into that facilities plan, off the courthouse. Does that make sense to go there, or do we want to do a different facility for health? So just, that'll be something that you decide here in the next several months. Next, please. Library, I think, pretty much status quo in here. She's got the strategic, Sarah has a strategic plan ongoing, with results of that coming out towards the end of the year. She's talked to you a lot about the focus to expanding the footprint outside of that area right around Prineville to get out of the rural areas, provide services there to increase the number of card holders and others that are participating with the library. Next one, please. In the clerk, you've got Cheryl, got the president election year this cycle. You've got additional equipment that's being purchased. You've got new legislation, this ranked choice voting ballot measure that's coming up. She's got some things going on with Helium, the software, the changes in the increased cost associated with that. And logistic issues, quarterly model, having her in a place that meets her needs. She has some very specific requirements that need to be accounted for. Sethler, John and his team moving forward with the CAMA software conversion, training and understanding how to best utilize that software is ongoing. He's mentioned the dwindling resources out at the state level. Staffing, the retirement turnover, there is an addition of an FTE, so this is together with the half from Erica's office is the 1.5 that I'm aware of for in the discussions thus far. And that addition, as we talked about, is a net, over a 5-10 plus year period is a net positive, and then revenue generated that to get all things in compliance will offset ultimately long-term more revenue, I think, than what that position costs. Next, please. Veteran Services, this has been one of those challenging operations to have the right staff in place. And we've gone through a lot of churn over the last few years. I think the folks that Katie has hired here just recently, it looks, everything I'm hearing is positive on that. I think she had them scheduled here a couple of weeks ago to, come to the court meeting to be introduced. Some issues came up that scheduling didn't work out well. I think, one of the issues when you had somebody in the visitor section that took up so amount of time. And she'll get that rescheduled by the time it works for them. And, here again, the suitable office space, being in an environment where they're part of a team. The community development, I think, gone through all those issues, pretty deeply. The biggest thing being, the development slowdown, the reduced revenues, the vacancies, in the staffing area. But financially, the organization appears to be, not, it's not declining at an accelerated, it's declining at a modest rate that is, I think, sustainable here for a period of time. I think what they very much don't want to see happen is lose the key people through attrition or through resignations or, let's say, layoffs or what have you, knowing that things are gonna be picking up likely, and we may have some huge projects on the burner, coming up forward. So not losing any of their key people is, I know, very important to them right now, and they're going through, I think you mentioned, the training to get as many people cross-trained and certified as possible. And that, again, showing that the training and the advancement opportunities that exist. Next, please.
Before we move on, I mean, I would say a 25% slowdown of the old busy. Or old normal, at least. If you look at the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, I would go over there and I would talk to them, and they were doing 90, 100 permits a day, and the guys were just running ragged, and so.
Right.
I mean, I think it's important to clarify that when we say a slowdown, it's from the most activity we've ever seen in history. Even after some.
Absolutely true. And, yeah, more sustainable. And again, development activity we know goes up and down through cycles, and just being careful that, it doesn't slow down so much that the guys have nothing at all to do and no revenue. And I think the tools will get in place to watch that, and, Bill and Randy are very much on top of watching that and making sure that they're not tipping down into some resources. And there's some very specific requirements, in community development that deal with the use of the revenues they generate. Being used for those purposes. For example, electrical dollars being used for electrical, building permits being used for building. Planning can't go in and, take the dollars, same with the on-site sanitation work, that has to be used, funded by those dollars. So they've got a very delicate dance to go. The good news for us is through that, the boom cycle, they, set aside a significant amount of reserves to allow for them to manage appropriately over a sustainable longer period of time. Roads, you've got numerous retirements over the next, several years. They've addressed the Sharp Road and Johnson Creek projects. Part of the TSP discussion, we kind of rolled this Juniper Canyon discussion into the TSP conversation and see where that, kind of goes. I think what you heard there in the Juniper Canyon is for as many people who were there talking, there was as many of those people as options and potential solutions. So find something that ultimately people coalesce around is gonna be, I think, a work of art. And I'm not sure there's an easy solution.
But I think it's important that we come up with 3 or 4 solutions that we see as viable options, and then go back to them with that instead of continuing to say.
And, the
What's
TSP,
a good idea?
yeah, the TSP will work through that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, come to those things, bring those forward. The long-term service requirements, I think that, going back in the TSP, they've got, this information in their system that speaks to maintaining the PCI at an 80, at a 70 plus, and they're at an 84 now. That's a refinement type of thing, and the discussion has been to be able to schedule out the various road segments that are gonna be done on an annualized basis and see those and make sure that we've got the funding for those. That's part of this work in TSP as well, as, getting that, laid out. And right now, if there were no changes to what we're doing, we're about $750,000 annual shortfall. And that can sustain itself for a while. There will need to be some additional resources somewhere to make that work. And my guess is I've never seen service standards go down. And they always seem to want to go up. Watching ODOT and going through and spending millions of dollars on sidewalks in downtown Bridgeville right now. Those were not part of the original plan of how to spend ODOT money, but sidewalks in communities on highways is something that they expand to. And as you get part of the rural area that becomes more urbanized and they want a higher level of service, that's something that may impact you as well. And so we've looked at STCs for, helping to fund some of these capital expansions, betterments. And then other options that, have been mentioned, is a road utility fee and a vehicle registration fee. Need to develop a facilities plan. The plan, the facility that's up there is dated as well as the landfill site, is the other, facilities that we're in the replacement mode for. And then, fleet management's been talking about whether that's a road thing or whether it's something that, evolves into another operation. Landfill, the evolving environmental, a little bit of turnover here, out of the operator level. Talking with Jackie, seems to think she may have an individual that they might want to offer. And I think, the discussion of having a seasonal so that they're not running into, issues in the summer, I think is one that's gonna be funded, proposed. Capital expenses, aging infrastructure, then, the solid waste management plan update will, put it into the long range financial modeling as well. Last time we did the financial modeling, I think I did that with Jeff Irwin back in 2018. So it's definitely in need of an update, particularly with the updated capital costs. Okay. Fairgrounds, significant capital investment, $1 million+ grant funded going into deferred maintenance and capital projects. They mentioned, the funding, a need for that new community hall that would be across Main Street over here. Utility flatbed, I believe they also got one from the sheriff's office. In that process, expanded RV space rentals, that's something that we've talked about. There's the financial feasibility that shows, the decision making about exactly what that looks like is still a pending decision. And then I think you have on your agenda next Wednesday the approval for the additional water rights from OID. Airport, got the business plan basically in draft form. We've been initiating the activity consistent with that, got the policy created, and we've been implementing that, got the rents with existing tenants. Each time there's a transaction, in terms of a sale and or a new lease, those are ending up under the new lease policy with a larger area generating rent at a higher rent rate. And then biggest thing I think we accomplished during last year was getting the FBO contract done and put in place. That's really full service, fixed base operator that provides all the things that pilot communities looking for. And if they don't have it, the ability to get it there to help serve them. We're very close with the IGA, with the city, to reduce the scope of that back down to the manager position. And you have significant, in the $4 or $5 million range, the capital investment paid for primarily by the FAA and the state. Very little local dollars having to be involved with that. Okay. And weed control, got the transition to a new weed master. And Thomas seems to be doing a great job. Very personable guy, very much aware of, the contracts and the relationships that he had established while he was up in Jefferson County. So it looks to be a really good fit in terms of getting him into the organization. Social media, this goes back to the communication planning and so forth that we need to, kind of get our arms around. And then, is with all folks, looking at implementing key performance measures. I believe, I guess it's through our departmental functions.
Eat your time, you were saying. Did you say you had to be done in an hour and?
Oh, I need to get done with that at 9:15, but we started 20 minutes late, so I got done with that. So we'll make up time. Let's see. I think, from hearing all of, the presentations, kind of my recap of that, I mean, as you three think about it, what are the priorities that you just absolutely want to make sure that we're addressing? Push comes to shove, what might be the ones that rise to the top that you just absolutely want to make sure we don't lose ground on, or not going sideways on, that we're making good progress?
I think fleet management, because I think you our fleet management, you put that all under control and regularly trading out our vehicles, that will save us in the long run.
And keep Erica safe.
Yes, I'm gonna go there with you and get a call.
I would talk, don't worry.
I'm a very quick car rider, and I'm gonna give it part of my, expertise.
Send her out.
Recruiting, I think is still hard.
Recruiting.
Improving the,
What pick you up?
improving the process and recruiting.
Yeah, retention.
Yeah, recruiting retention, yeah. Continues to be an issue, okay?
Inboard.
Onboarding,
Like to keep moving the best we can on facilities.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was stolen, right?
Oh, and the idea of setting aside a budget for benevolence or whatever you want to call it, so that we know how much money that we can do for these various organizations, and that would be a very important thing.
I agree.
okay?
Gives us the ability to
Stay
be helpful,
yeah.
but also get to a point where we're not just
We need to just come up.
saying yes to everybody. I think that's a really important thing.
Okay. Would you, in terms of a starting point for that fund, would we look at what we've been spending in that fashion, say the last 2 years, and start there plus 20%, plus 10%?
I think we need to look at what we spent and then look at what we can spend.
Agreed.
And then figure it out between there. But I think if we have a fixed, I mean, this is what we did in our company. We had a fixed amount. And if you came, we were extremely benevolent, but when the money ran out, it ran out for that year. And that was, and like Seth says, it gives you the ability to say no to very good causes, because it's tough. But I think we need to have just a bubble there, and we know, and we're not asking, do we have that money? We know we have that money, and we make that decision from that bubble. The other thing, I would like to see us, do a collaboration with Park and Rec, City of Prineville, and the county to do an event center for the community. But I think that can be done in a partnership, like a collab with the city, the Park and Rec, and us, to help the community needs.
On facilities, I think the courthouse would fit under facilities improvement. Would you agree with that?
And I have a question, so we have that one building there that sits there vacant, that they take, is there any way that we can kind of start, gut it, I start transferring people in as we fix areas of the courthouse. I mean, I know ideally we want to do a new building, but we have an old building there. Is that a way, like we put Cheryl there for so many months, fix her area? I don't know if that's a possibility. I'm just naively throwing that out.
Yeah.
That's just
Building or new building.
the police department, yeah, I mean, is there any way to use that, to clear the courthouse and then go back, you know what I'm saying, do a section at a time? I don't know if that's possible, I don't even know the condition of the building, I'm just.
Yeah, and the condition's pretty rough.
Okay.
It'd take a lot of money.
A lot of money.
to fix it
Oh,
up.
okay,
A lot of
okay, and the best is the
structural
bulldozer,
Yeah,
okay, I just didn't, I've never been, you know, I just wondered.
and when we go into remodel the courthouse, it's, I mean, you can do a piecemeal, but it's gonna take a long time, it's gonna be very expensive.
It's best to
It's
just
too
do it
bad
all.
to go in and do it all.
Hey Cheryl, you're out on the street, sorry, what can I say? You have some-
Yeah, I think, yeah, those logistical issues, yeah.
Yeah,
We've got to work
there
through
was-
those.
The other day, I drove by it and I thought, well, there's, you know, there's 2x4s in the air, I didn't know how bad, that's why I said I'm just throwing it out very naively.
Any other priorities you think too?
Well, on a material thing, but sort of as we've made some great strides in the past and would not like to, I'd like to see us keep moving forward with all the good things that are happening and, not fall back.
Now, see, on the comp study, one of the things, you know, again, you're looking at your recruitment retention and, you know, where you are being competitive in the marketplace for your salaries. You know, if we talk about benefits, you know, we've been able to move the retirement benefit up to 12% 401K contribution. We've talked a little bit about an incremental cost, you know, is there an interest in looking at an equal to or better type of plan? At least to start thinking about that and start, you know, I mean, we're gonna find out what that costs. I mean, but, you know, moving in that direction, is that something that,
Yeah, the only thing I would add to the continuing moving forward momentum is, as well as continuing to move forward, look at what we've been doing and find ways to fine tune that so it fits this organization. It's not just, kind of an overall plan.
But in turn, one of the department heads after the meeting yesterday talked to me about momentum, let's keep the momentum going. And I totally agree with Brian that that's a very, very good goal and we need to keep it going.
What was yours, Andy?
just, you know, talking about, you know, the benefit side of things.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the compensation, we got into that 50th plus percentile. And we've moved the retirement benefit up substantially. It's not, you know, a long stretch to get to, you know, an equal to or better than. When we think in terms of, you know, longevity, you know, right now in the PER scenario, you know, it takes 5 years to vest. We're 6 months with the county. Money's yours. But once you get to 5 years, do you throw something else in? Once you get to 10, you throw something else in, something that again is looking at incentives to stay longer with the county and, you know, get you, I mean, if you're gonna retire from the county, for example, you're here 20 years, you get a certain level of funding towards medical between the time you go in Medicare versus when you mostly retire, some sort of stipend. Those types of things that can be built into a plan that, again, isn't throwing 14% of your payment to tier 1, tier 2, and, you know, former mistakes.
Right, I think they've already identified all the mistakes, I think we worked from that and I like that. I mean, that's a good direction to go, I think that gives time for thought and you know, it's, because there are people that would rather be in the first, but you know, there are some things that are good about the first, and there are some things that are good about the 401K, and I think that would give the opportunity to have that split in 5-year investment.
I think what you get, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't be more specific, but what I think you guys are talking about is recruiting and retention. So I mean, I think that would all go into that, figuring out. But to your point, there are some situations where birds in a certain occupation is the way it needs to work. It's required. Yeah, and so I think we just need to make sure we're following that, and I think it also is really important, recruiting and retention, so. But we just need to figure out what that situation is and how we move forward.
I also think your compensation and that goes under two, if you go under two categories, one is your forward. Because by doing that, I mean, I think those both fit in. They both fit in. We're keeping our, we did compensation studies. We're addressing them more. We're trying to, and that totally gets on both of those.
Yeah, just, high level, the 1.5 FTE count. That's a 0.75% add to the current FTE count of approximately 200, with a growth rate of, an assumption of 2%. So we're trending in the right direction in terms of not going up from 9.4 to the next, a little higher, it's 9.3 or 9.35 or whatever. So I think that is a good thing to see, and thank you to the sheriff's office for being able to pause for a little bit. Okay,
They're smiling at that. I don't know if there's a happy smile.
He's not showing his teeth.
Well, I think we've been pretty fortunate in the last 2 years, at the sheriff's office on the staffing side of things, and we're very grateful for that, and so that's, but the pause, for this is trying to catch up with some of the stuff that we have, and we are grateful for what we have, so.
But quite frankly, as Erica can tell you and Carrie can tell you, in the sheriff's department, lawlessness is increasing. And so who is our barrier for lawlessness? It's you guys. And particularly Erica, who's trying to turn the tide before we get into the adult system. And really your thing the other day really affected me because it is so sad to see this many children. Like you're talking about 6 children in full psychosis, and you've never seen that before. So yes, they need to pause, but we also need to keep law enforcement because they are our protectors. Law, the sheriff, fire, VA, Erica, they're all extremely important to keep this community safe.
yeah, I think another group that she didn't mention that's extremely important is library. Now, the folks that read are far less likely to be in their system.
Yeah.
And so.
I think we're very lucky with the gal that we have, Sarah. I think she's a really good department head, and I'm gonna work with her on Monday. I'm meeting with her about Lina. And I agree with you. We need more outreach programs. And used to be the library was very successful in our area. It was, I used to go down to the bookmobile and stuff, so we're getting there. Baby steps, all little baby steps, not big leaps.
And I think the investment in there, that's the preventive medicine, right? I mean, you're.
One of them, but
One of them.
as Erica, Carrie can tell you.
I don't think the library is gonna solve 8 to 9% of the issues I have going on.
No, no.
But I would hope that would be the magic pill, and I would have a bus that commuted them from our office down there on a daily basis.
You just have the office full of books.
Yes. You just have a little tunnel underneath.
Yeah, but that, I just think our public safety is a big issue, and we need to keep that as at forefront, because it is, and look at America in general, lawlessness is increasing, and people are, it's a sad state, really.
Anything else? Slide to the next slide. Please. Okay, so these are the 8 goals that we had last year.
There.
Kind of, thinking in terms of the court priorities over there, and then, these. is there any desire that the number one thing should change at all?
I think we've been working on all eight
Looks
pretty
good
good.
to me.
I think where baby steps is maybe, yeah, but I think we've done pretty well. There's still improvement, I'm not gonna say that, but
Right, and I think, we talked about, one, I mean, is there any, do you want to go ahead and keep that one? We, accomplished number two. Do you want, adequate staffing, retention programs? I mean, we talked about that as a priority, keeping that, focused. Plan, develop, implement the facilities plan. That's an ongoing thing to get that done. Technology roadmap. Keep that going. Is there any?
the number 9 could be your fleet management. I think that's gonna be a big thing.
That is under 6, actually.
Okay.
And then,
I mean, the only thing I would say on 2, I think we need to tweak the county administrator to a county manager position. And I think we'll probably get into that more later today, but that would be the only thing I would change, is I think there's, I totally agree with Brian, there's been a lot of great things that have happened, but there's also some discomfort in the way that things have been structured.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
community-wide as well as organization-wide. And so I think, I mean, that's just a conversation we need to have about, pedaling back some of that stuff, but totally agree that lots of good things have happened. We need to continue.
is there any additional goals from what we've got over on the core priorities, or did we capture all of those within the goals here? And we can add whatever's over there bulleted into here with number 9 would be the benevolent set aside. Right?
Yeah, I think that's an important thing we need to develop. And I also would like to put on there to keep, or when I say encouraging, but that's not really the word, our public safety. The public, Erica and
Supporting,
the DA and supporting our public safety sector.
Totally agree. Can we call it the community fund instead of the benevolence fund?
Yeah, benevolent is not really right, it can be whatever, it is. I don't care.
That's a
I'm just saying-
little, I believe.
We need a budget and we need to know what we have and distribute that. And the other thing is, like I said, you said it's already done, but like when we decide that high school rodeo is gonna be free
Totally
and
agree.
it brings all of this into this community, we need to have a conversation with the city and say, how important is this to you to help us? Because we're bringing revenue into the city and we're giving our facilities away for you, we're using our aging facilities. How, what is your, the assets you have, why don't you, and again, come in and let's get together here. Because where do you have the pride at this present moment? Be wonderful to make an event center go food, but that's not gonna happen right away. So I really would like to see us do a co-ab and get down and talk to the city and say, hey, we're having some financial things, what do we need to do to short term, I guess. It's like this year, I met with Mike Kingdom and Smith, and it was $43,000 given away. They bumped it down to 23. But again, we need to, and the fair should be being paid that.
Yes.
It shouldn't be coming out of their budget. It should be paid that, whether it's out of that community fund or however it works, but that's something we need to find too. There's a lot of potential over here. It's just gonna be slow and it's fine too.
So I don't get it right. Would you say that your community fund and an event center collaboration and for momentum tie in with what already exists, a financial plan, delivering the best service that you can with the resources? Is it captured or does it need an additional?
I kind of agree with you, Jamie. I think it is captured.
Okay.
So I agree with you, but I don't know, I'm gonna.
Yeah, let's, go ahead and target it to where you think's a good spot, and then we can
kind of,
make sure it gets bulleted into the, as you call in the budget document, we lay out, specific elements of each of these things.
So I think you can do like a one day. Have the general development vessel service available resources, and then make continued momentum.
one B, so I was gonna say.
It doesn't look like an A, I'm sorry to say.
I was thinking it one B, is one A is what we already have, or is this one
I
A?
always do one, I think you can do it, but I always do the first one today.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a whole host of bullets already underneath that, we'll just add that as a
Just
bullet.
add it to the bullet.
Yeah.
I mean, your event center is kind of part of maybe the facilities plan
Right.
Yeah,
as well.
Incorporate that.
There's some overlap here.
So,
I think they're all captured there, it's just like you say, in bullets or minutia data.
Yeah, we wanna have enough detail that you, on people's mind when you go through it. It isn't getting shoved to the side.
identify. Could be eight, could be the community fund,
Yeah,
that one under community. Put community fund under that one.
yeah. You're talking about a prioritization with law enforcement, does that fit? Again, within number one,
I would put it in one.
okay. Do I need to, do we make it
I
additional?
would be fine making its own, number 9, or do we still just have 8? Is there a thing where we only want 8, or can we add?
Yeah, I think if you wanted to, have a ninth that spoke, specifically to the public safety / community justice, whatever the terminology that, the 4 folks that are here in that realm. I don't know, John, Gary,
Law enforcement, there's public safety.
public safety.
So what do you want me to say, prioritization of public safety?
Yeah,
Is that-
community.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we need to keep our community safe and it's escalating and so we need to keep our thumb on that.
Well, the best case we have is for the primary those specific issues that are.
Yeah. I agree.
Driving in a new direction.
Maybe we could send all the liberals out to sea. What do you think about that? Then we just, the rest of us can make the rules. Don't say I said that, I'm probably recorded, I'm in trouble again, I'm just always in trouble.
Read that in the bulletin.
Where's the city police today? Where's my license siren? I can't believe you saw that, Cheryl. I'm kind of ready for that. You know, I did pass my background check for a census, yeah, you much better. I didn't have to pay bill off.
Anything else? You captured?
Yeah, good.
You're a good secretary, Jean.
Oh, I think I can. Sorry, if it's sideways.
Okay, so we just made up a bunch of time.
Right. We need it for a restroom break?
Yeah, I mean, we can take a 10-15 minute break.
Well, this is the deal that wants this. It started to tilt on me.
just slow back down.
That one we kept running because it just goes in the vault.
So I.
This one I had brought.
Hold it. Okay. Next item up was, discussing roles and responsibilities of court members. Wanted to spend some time too here on the committee assignments. And then, job descriptions, board members and other organizations. And there's 3 documents that you have here, and distributed to you. There's the roles and responsibilities of county commissioners, all members. And this is taking the typical responsibilities you see with the governing board and then trying to incorporate specifics as it relates to Crook County. Bullets. And that's a 2-page document. And then there's a document that Seth prepared on the role of the county judge / board chair. So that's one set of documents. Then you have the county governing bodies, roles, responsibilities. These are comparable size Oregon counties. This was simple yesterday. We were able to get out on the websites these 12 different counties looked at. What did they say on the website in terms of the roles, responsibilities of their commissioners? So that's there as a reference. And then also as a reference in the county code book, the handbook and code, there is references back to the county judge. And this goes back to the statutory authority judge versus commissioner. And when you get outside, as I'm reading through the law and you're talking with land down and so forth, is the judge has responsibilities as defined by statute as relates to what's going on in the judicial function and outside the judicial function. It's much more like the commission role, and in the administrative function that's defined is really set forth in your code. And so all the references associated with the county judge in that particular capacity is laid out in the handbook by reference. So with that, just turn it over to you 3 and walk through this in terms of high level summary. And then we look through again all of these different, these are major tasks. Legislative authority, your ordinance, you as the body are the body that enacts ordinances, enact policies, resolutions. Budget and finance, you're the body that establishes the budgets, establishes the service levels, establishes fees and charges, send countywide measures to the ballot, approve investment policies, review financial performance, serve as the audit committee, approve purchasing policies, approve purchases above the defined dollar threshold, and or other metrics. And there's other things that may fall under the finance realm as well. Governance, you're appointing members to various advisory and operating committees, commissions, or boards, and there's a whole list of them. I'm not sure if I have all of them or not. You'll see, review and feedback from 3 of you and, department heads as well, to make sure that we picked up, all of them. Zoning and land use, you appoint the planning commission, you approve the comp land use plan, and any changes to that plan, you serve as an appeals board for land use decisions. Your governing board of other districts, the Crook County Road District, this example, that's one. The extension, or each extension is a separate entity as well, and it is, that probably falls in here.
Trying Oregon extension.
Yes.
So while we're going through this, if we see something we wanna tweak, do we bring it up now or do we wait till the very end?
Let me go through all of it and then if we come back, I definitely want to have this updated, tweaked, however you guys want to do that. And the whole goal here is to get this as much as we can into an operating type of framework so that everybody knows who's on first and what all the different groups are and getting committees. If Sarah came on, there wasn't a good roadmap here in all the committees, and I think it wasn't until we had a wolf incident that we even knew there was a wolf committee. And that's, you guys may have known, but there wasn't, a trail that showed that existed. We're trying administratively to make sure we have all these things in a centralized location that can manage. And there's somebody paying attention so that if there's a seat that needs to be filled, we get it filled in no time. And just again, staying on top of this stuff. From a personnel standpoint, you appoint, terminate the county administrator, ratify appointment of department heads. You approve labor agreements, you approve pay and benefits for unrepresented employees, you establish the personnel policies. Infrastructure and public works, you approve the airport master plan, airport leases, transportation system plan, capital projects, approve solid waste management plan, approve franchise agreements. Intergovernmental relations, serve on various boards and committees. These again are the ones that I recollect. There's probably more of these. Would be my guess. We've got ENCO, COIC, COHC, Chamber of Commerce, the AOC, and the various committees off of AOC. It'd be nice to have those all detailed, which one specifically, who, and that type of things on those. AEOC, which is the Association of the Eastern Oregon Counties. The same type of thing, there's subcommittees, et cetera. Community engagement, you engage with community groups and organizations, you respond to citizen inquiries. In summary, the county commission plays a multifaceted role in legislative, financial governance, and community aspects, contributing to the overall well-being and development of the county. Okay, I want to go back through and provide any updates on any of this.
When you, kind of in the personnel section,
Yeah.
when you talked about ratifying, employees, I think we should add, that the county court, hires department heads with support of the county manager. I think we would also, just under the personnel, add, that we would review department heads with the support of the manager. I don't know if, when it talks to about communication with employees, I don't know if that's a part of that section. But again, I think it would be the county court with the manager's support. And then also, firing departments, department heads would be the county court with, the manager's support.
Okay. That's some suggestions there. Do you want to talk about those, or do you want to bring up other?
Oh, yeah, let's see. Major projects, I think it's important that we have a court liaison on major projects to ensure that we're interacting with the employees, the community, and that each one of us has or at least one of us has a hands-on knowledge of what's going on. I think that the positive thing of having the manager there is to ensure that all three of us are able to know what's going on there, and it's not reliant on the single elected official to bring that information back to the rest, just because it's so difficult to share the information. Same thing with like interacting with the city of Pineville. I think we should have at least one elected official, depending on the project. You know, I know Susie's passionate about the event center, so.
And the fairgrounds, I think the fairgrounds, we could do some collaboration there, I think it's important. I think we bring something to Prineville, and I think Prineville on some of our projects needs to come in and help us.
So then I think that the manager would be there to support that and ensure that the information is shared equally amongst everybody. Brian does a lot with the data centers and some different things. Same thing, Brian would be there with the support of the county manager. And they would, you know, be able to bring back Let's see,
Now, we back up, the data centers aren't intergovernmental, right?
I just meant generally, when you're talking with the city and you're kind of discussing those things.
Okay, yeah, I think the,
And maybe it goes somewhere else. I meant more just using an example of when another elected official would be there having a conversation. I think it's important to have that manager person there working with instead of the county clerk.
yeah, I think, I'm understanding and hearing, it goes beyond the city, you got the city of Pringle, this thought should be the first draft. You got the city, you got Parks and Recs district, got the school district, these all fall under the government.
Yeah.
Got the fire district, you have the state of Oregon,
Federal,
various
state,
departments,
Yeah.
you got the, feds, and then you have, your local, state, assembly, your state representative, and your, federal representative in your federal senators.
And you might want to put in there ODF and W. I know that we tried for a wildlife plan, and a lot of people worked very hard on it and it failed. And I think probably Will and them have it probably on their radar that we're gonna need an ODF and W, something down there, because we are, like in the solar plants, and that we are starting to get into our wildlife areas, so I think that would be another person we could put on there.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, BLM, Forest Service.
Yeah, you could go.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those.
I just know ODF and W, like with the wildlife plan, a lot of people were angry because a lot of work was done in that and it failed. And, that's one of the things, I'm not sure planning has kind of on a goal. But again, if that happens, we should be in there because it's an important aspect of the county.
So I've added federal agencies such as ODMW, BLM, US Forest Service, USDA, federal officials, state officials. That's the idea.
General, that you see your Brian L, Parks and Rec, I like that in Parks and Rec too. All those different.
Do we have anything in terms of the EDCO, COIC, COHC, Chamber, AOC, committees, and EOC? Are there any of those other acronym soup groups that you're presently involved with and somebody should be on?
Like on an inboarding basis, probably what would have been good is if the three of us could have sat down and I would have had more of a familiarity. I mean, these are all acronyms. I've got to pick up what the acronym is, as Carrie said, it's alphabet soup. And maybe like EDCO, I got an invitation to the luncheon on Monday and I thought I had to join. So Sarah has to clean up my computer mess. And then, of course, I didn't realize we already had tickets and we're already, that's all just it's silly stuff. But I think if what we would have done is when came in, part of inboarding should have been, these are the committees that we have as county court. What do you bring here? So like right now I'm on COHC, which that was my background with bacteriology and infection control. So I feel that I can be an asset there, more so than maybe Seth and Brian. That's a good fit for me. There's other things that aren't good fits for me. We all bring it, we're all elected, we all bring a talent. And maybe that would have been a good thing to do, is to just have a meeting
Totally.
of the three of us and do it however legally we have to do, but to just talk about the different things. And it's also a good thing because, so you have Monty here who's running for election and you have Brian who's running for election. And then they have an idea of what, I'm kind of the one that pressed for this just because you have more of an idea of what you're going to delve into. And you have more of an idea, my passion is, this, and so therefore, what can my passion bring to enhance our position? I know I already bring laughter.
And entertainment.
And entertainment, but what, we were a little grim when I first moved in, and so me being almost arrested brought a little laughter, what the heck?
So, a little history. I mean, like when I was appointed and came on, Bremer and Seth there had already made a list of all of this stuff we're talking about. And they had picked out what they wanted, and then this was left what they didn't.
Well, I mean, I
Or
think.
So we just, or things that I had interest in. And so this was what the liaison was all about. And now we've kind of broken away from the liaison. And so we need to take what were in those groups and we need to make committees on all of these things. And then we can split things up as the committees.
Yes.
And a lot of these committees will work with the administrator because he will be involved on those. But there will also be a member
And I
from the
totally
board
agree.
that will work together. And so I think we're not gonna get it all done here today. So we're just talking the scope of a possibility that might, replace what we had with the liaison.
OFRC is not on that board.
Okay, but that being said, Brian, I think there is value to have those liaison roles. And I think we need to just work with whoever we hire in that manager position to ensure that we're putting them in positions to succeed. But that's my biggest beef that I've seen throughout this whole process is the lack of interaction with the employees. And more importantly, the employees feeling of the inability to talk to the county board and, being pushed to only work through the administrator, and that's what's turned me off to that system so badly, because I'm hearing across the board that they do not want a situation where they're forced to talk to that administrator, and that administrator passes that information on to the county board. And I understand that it's not a simple process of figuring out how we do that, and making that person, putting that person in a position so they succeed. But I think it's incumbent of us as managers and elected officials from the community to still have that role in the organization. And I know this is where we always stumble and run into a wall here because
if I could.
we fundamentally disagree on that, so.
We're switching the subject.
Oh,
We're talking about roles and responsibilities of you guys, not of the administrator. And,
so then I would just add liaisons onto that.
well, I'm not sure what you mean by liaisons to each of these groups.
No, just each commissioner has a few departments that they care about and spend time with and.
Okay. Yeah, we were talking about the intergovernmental relations.
So once we get done with that, we'll go on to the other.
Okay, so in the intergovernmental relations, my understanding is we've got most of the committee or groups that are finally at the OFRC.
Is this also where you want like COACT and COIC is on there, but there's,
The COACT.
yeah, it was another one.
Stiff.
What is it,
Stiff.
sir?
CREA two was another one that Jerry was,
Which one?
CREA was another one that
Yeah.
Jerry was very
There's the STIP, but I don't think that's just a funding source.
with his.
I thought Jerry actually sat on this stiff.
There's that's
COIC.
been.
But I thought, and maybe that's delineated by COIC. I just remember him being part of that board.
Yeah.
But see, inboarding wise, if we would have went over this and went over those committees, the three of us, that would have been very helpful for the newbie.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking at the next newbie, and that's just that just would be a very helpful thing to do.
Right.
And that fell through the cracks, oh well, but we need to up our game.
Yeah, and where it does fit in to this position I'm in is that's something assigned to do, and right now I'm assigned nothing to, so.
Yes, and so therefore you should facilitate that meeting. In fact, maybe that meeting should have even went on before I was even sworn in. I'm not sure about that, because maybe the person should know before they actually, I think if you got that far, you're not gonna run away.
It's too late.
But,
Are you gonna say you and beer and Debbie had that problem?
no, you would have scared me, Brian. But no, I don't know where the thing is, but it needs to be done, and it's inboarding, and it should be done on every department. It should be done across the board. It's not just us, but it is, and I agree, like what Brian's saying, I wish we would have done.
So we can expand this list. We're gonna need to, as we look at all those different committees, if there's in fact a board assignment or, board that ultimately somebody's on, We need you to tell us that you're in that focus, and this isn't part of my focus whatsoever, my focus is
No, no.
internal to the organization, not to your intergovernmental. And that's why the decision of the three people up there.
And like I say, we should have just had a meeting on it and didn't it, right? It says we used to, so let's bring it back.
Yeah, no, I think it's
So we
what
gotta
we
do
did in the past. and we should do it again.
Yeah, simple.
And some of these committees have subcommittees,
Right.
and some of these committees are under a specific, like law enforcement or forestry or natural resource. And then you have to consider it, we have a natural resource director.
Right.
And so, there's coordination.
Yeah, there's a lot of,
It's just sitting down and talking about it, figuring it out. Yeah, it's not a big thing.
And like AOC is something that we don't really have a lot of control. I mean, we can request to be on those committees, but it's a different, whoever's the president of AOC is the one who decides who's in charge of those committees.
But I, from all the literature, all the emails, everything I get from AOC, we could all, if we weren't so tied up in other things, we can all contribute a lot more to the legislative portion of what our one big actions will be.
And I agree with you, Brian. I think AOC should be kind of across the board. And
Yeah, no, that.
it resonates with you, this particular subject, it resonates with me, this particular subject, but again, Brian said we used to do it, we just need to keep doing it, that's all.
and then Seth, you brought up, liaison role.
And I think we can just, like Susie and Brian said, go through and look at the departments that we're most passionate about. And I mean, by no means does it mean you can't talk to those other departments. It just means that those ones that Brian's very passionate about the sheriff's office and the airport. In different places, and you're already spending more time now with everybody else. That's where this managerial role comes in to help share that information across the county court.
Okay, is there any other suggestions that you want to end up talking about?
I think that's, I think, you know, that's very good, I was sure I've seen that before.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it, but I feel like maybe the department heads in their own meeting have this communication amongst themselves. Do they like the liaison? Do they like to be able to talk to everybody? Or, does your liaison represent you, in the manner of which you want to be represented?
And certain part of it is personalities.
Absolutely.
Maybe Erica feels more comfortable with me and John feels more comfortable, I don't know, there's a certain part of a personality there too. That maybe that liaison is not a person that fits your personality, and that's not because you're not right, you're not a good personality, it's just the way people play.
So to do that, I think that the different departments should have a say in.
Yeah. And that might be.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation, and I mean, I think we can figure out what our passions are, and then we can then find a way to get information from those department heads, and, because I hear what you're saying would department heads prefer not to have liaisons at all, right? That's what you're saying, and I think, I totally get it, but I think it's also incumbent on us to be involved in the organization. And if as a commissioner, that's not a priority for you, then you don't have to, I'm not saying you have to, but I think that when we are elected by the voters, they want us to be engaged and have conversations with people. And that's what I'm saying, I think we need to have, because we're kind of the extension of the voters, right? The voters who put us in there, we're the ones that are the ones talking to them the most. So it allows them to have more of a feel of what's going on in the county. That's what I feel like we've lost in this short time that Amy's been here. I'm sorry, in this short time that we've had an administrative position. Because, it's just something that I see as missing, And, I saw some kind of comment on there that, you know, the majority of people want an administrator or whatever, that's fine. But I'm just telling you that I've heard from people that have said, do not mention my name, I am not comfortable being part of this. But I do not like the system, I like being able to interact with other people. And I think it's really important that we don't put people in a position to have to out themselves to get their point across.
I'm not putting that all together with the liaison thing, but, that's just communication there.
Sure.
And I think we all do better at communication. No.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots.
Maybe that's something that we leave up to the department heads. We have intelligent department heads. They know their own thing, they know their own staff, and maybe, like Brian says, we just leave who you want for a liaison and if, you know, but I don't think again, like, let's say it's a facilities question and the sheriff feels better going to Brian, then he should go to Brian, but maybe it's a different thing. It's maybe a criminal issue and they feel better about going to me and I'm great, you know, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, so kind of set in a way that black and white gets blurred over.
Yeah, no, I'm totally fine.
And so maybe
As long as
it's
they're-
just that we're there, maybe we're just there, and I do think, and I know you weren't happy about this, but me going to department head meetings and then saying, finding it so valuable that I feel staff and Brian should go, I feel that is a really big thing. I think we should rotate through that. And, you know, if there's a department head that feels intimidated by us, our presence there, then they have you to go to and say this, or they should feel free to go to, I'm there, and they go to Brian, or they go to Seth, or whatever. But we do have very intelligent department heads, so I don't know, I'm not sure about the liaison thing, because you do get into personalities, you get into expertise, what I'm good at. I'm not, Brian's better at other things, you know, we all have our limitations, and we're elected officials. You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, no, that's
You
good.
really don't know what you're getting, so
But I
I also do feel the department head meetings are very important for us to attend and do it, like I say, on a rotating basis.
And be engaged. I don't think we should be told that we shouldn't be part of the comment. I mean, I don't think we should be interrupting every 5 minutes, but I think it shouldn't be.
It should be a free place for department heads to feel that they can give their input, whether we're talking or not. I think we just have to judge. I felt that because I talked twice. I commended Carrie on her presentation and I talked about baking buddies because I had gotten the award. And then I realized, Susie, don't do that. But
Yeah, I asked you to speak too, right?
I know you did, and I said, I've already broken my rule. I'm gonna just shut the hell up, but
It was your rule.
But you know, there's a certain part of that you need to let the department heads speak.
Yes, totally.
And not, and if it's something volatile that you don't like, then you go and like John, he's coming to Polina, and I take him aside and punch him out or something, whatever. That's just the way, you know what I'm saying? There's just certain ways that if there's something there in that department head meeting, maybe that isn't the place to address it.
Totally.
Maybe the place to address it is that you say later, I'd like to have a meeting with you, John, can we meet? And then that's where that comes up. You got the knowledge,
Yes.
and now you go back and find out where did they arrive at this decision that you don't care for. And then it's your option at that time to go to your other commissioners and put it on a session to maybe talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
I think the goal going into this whole thing was to have all three of you, all three elected folks be on the same place with respect to information, access to information and so forth. To reduce and or eliminate as much as possible answer shopping. You know, find somebody that'll support you, don't get an answer that you like, you go to somebody else, you go to somebody else till you get the answer that you're looking for. As opposed to, my role is to represent all three of you and I'm looking for where you collectively are representing a wide variety of viewpoints. And one of you may say yes to the request, there may be a slight tweak that needs to be made to make it so that the others are all on board with it. So that's the role of working through, my role, I think, with you. The other is, make it clear that there isn't multiple points of direction. It can't be all three of you providing direction. My role would be, forget it, just exit, and you guys can go back to the chaos. And the thing is, we're gonna make it a whole lot quicker if we're all going on the same boat, going the same direction. We're not flying off into a little boat, going off on a rabbit trail, those types of things. We wanna keep going all straight together, figure it out, stay on the boat, go forward. And those things are more difficult when you've got a lot of different conversations going on, different direction, interpretations and so forth. And I think I've been pretty open to anyone that wants to suggest we do something a little bit differently. And then bring that back to the court, and, these all departments are running pretty independently for the most part. It's been putting the framework in place where they can go in the same direction, and we're not duplicating it. We're gonna reduce the amount of duplication, triplication of effort. And these systems that we're talking about, the ERP, the HRIS systems will help facilitate that, I think, even more.
We're a team.
Yeah.
We're a team, and none of us should be going and saying something to one of those without the team.
Yeah.
agreement. That's the way I do it. So if I were to talk to a department head and there was something that I was concerned about, and I now know about executive session, which again is something that I didn't know about, that would be the place for us to three come together and say, hey, I heard this, I'm a little disturbed, and
Right.
that's, and I totally agree with your statement. We need to be a team. We can't go off and have one saying one thing and the other two not. That's not our goal.
Yeah, as far as reaching out to the departments, there's been no prohibition on that whatsoever. There's been no prohibition of employees coming and talking to you. The thing is just communicate that communication taking place. And that's all that's been asked, so that there isn't I've been doing this conversation over here, we come up with a great plan, here it is.
But again, the plan should come back and be presented to all of us,
What
not.
should be talked about is that we're working on
Yes.
it. So that there's awareness, that there's a buy-in, that you guys are aware that there's a plan being cooked up by whomever, right? And again, you may not wanna have, the organization may not wanna have a bunch of time to spend on cooking up a plan. It may not be exactly what the others are thinking about, so that gets again back into, you're trying to keep everybody on the same place, be most efficient. Can't be multiple sheets.
Yeah, and I think we've all agreed to that part of it, and my biggest issue is just the, replacement of the county court versus the support of the county court. And I know we disagree with this up and down all day long, but I think when you're not part of reviewing the department heads, when you're not part of hiring and firing the department heads, I think you lose a grasp that, not now, because I have a really good relationship with a lot of the department heads, but down the road, you end up like in Deschutes County, where I talk to the commissioners there, and they go to the department head and they say, you need to talk to the administrator. I'm not gonna talk to you unless you talk to the administrator. And that's where we can't let this go.
You're not there at all.
Well, I know, but that's where we're headed, and I think
Well, I'm not sure where you're coming up with that, because you can't have the ability to ratify the department head hires.
see, ratify is a totally different word than hire. And I think we're moving in the right direction.
I think I have the floor for a second. Sure. You have the ability to ratify. You are requested to participate in any of the employment hiring process. If you want to be on, and we've got the director going on with the facilities right now, all three of you want to be involved with that hiring process, so you're going to be involved in the interview panels, and we're figuring that all out, and you'll be involved. In terms of the decision to make the hire, and it's me and bring it back to you for ratification, this position, bring it back to you for the hire. Because at the end of the day, you three, the way it's set up is to hire this position if he's not doing what it is you're wanting to get done. The department heads, you can see the conflict that's gonna happen there if you're ultimately the one firing you're taking it out of the hands of the person who's got the responsibility to get the stuff done, and you're gonna be in there making that decision. I don't think that's gonna work for anybody that's in this type of role. They're gonna want, if there's a firing decision, they can bring it back to you, say, yeah, I'm recommending the fire, you guys give the sign off, that's one thing. But to have you be the sign off, and I'm gonna just sit there and say, okay, fine, and then you're gonna hold me accountable for their performance. If you don't wanna fire, and I gotta work with them, even though I'm saying we need to get rid of them. You've lost, you know, the job never sit for that, so.
And I agree. I mean, the administrator is working day in and day out with everything. And those have to be, he has to, he's working, he's got a plan and manage. Ultimately, he comes back to us. But I agree, we shouldn't jump in and fire somebody and leave that vacant.
Well, I'm not saying we as an individual would be able to fire, I'm saying it's accounted for.
And right, but we're not into the day-to-day in the operations, or we shouldn't be.
But we should be.
But not entirely. I mean, we should be knowing what's happening, but the day-to-day operations, I believe, should be.
What you're describing is a city. In a city is totally different from county. And if you talk to Jefferson County, their commissioners are just as engaged as the administrator in hiring and firing and managing departments and all those different things.
Yeah, and I talked to one, I don't have a sense, George, I'm not gonna argue. with
Yeah, I mean,
you, I do.
But Stephen said something very important well, he said it at our Q2 reviews, he said it at the department head thing. He has 3 vacancies, but he's very hesitant because they also need to be a team.
yeah, 100%.
And so I do put a lot of weight on the department head, and it's like with Sarah, we just hired Brianna, don't raise your eyebrows, I'm not gonna say anything bad. And so I went to Sarah and I said, who do you like? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts? And I feel that the department heads and the people that work with those people, they have an extremely heavy weight, because if the personality clashes, it's not gonna be right, and we're small enough, we need to be a team. So there is a very big component there of our department heads, and I don't wanna take that away, because otherwise we lose that chemistry, and chemistry will take you a heck of a lot farther than talent.
Right, I totally agree.
So I agree kind of fundamentally with both of you. Because yes, I do wanna be part of the hiring process, but I also think it's our responsibility to really listen to our department heads and give them maybe 80% weight, and maybe, I'm just saying, that's just my.
And listen to the manager, We
Yes.
need to listen to all the things, we need to work as a team and make sure that we're engaged in the community, or in the organization. And moving forward.
You just gotta be real careful to go the way Seth has talked about fully. You don't need this position. It's back to what you were, which is several counties in the state have that system, where there's 3 commissioners and they manage the whole organization. No administrator, they're working full time. That's a structure that you had and it wasn't working. So that's why you moved in this direction, and that's why you see this happening across the country, where you bring in professional management rather than elected people running an entire organization as complex as a county government. It's way beyond, I think, that skill set, and that's, this position shouldn't be a popularity contest. Any department head shouldn't be a popularity contest. It's a.
We are a popularity contest, and you don't know what each individual brings to the table. Unless we're gonna start saying we need a master's in econ and this and that. We are a popularity contest, and that's why it's very important to get this figured out.
Yeah.
So that we have, again, for people that are running for election, have a knowledge of what they need to think about doing, and for that person in that position. So I do feel we need a, whatever you want to call it, administrative manager, I don't care about the term, but no, we need you or our organizational skills and that, and we need to get, again, hot on finding that replacement.
Yeah, no, I think we need to put out a search for that manager position yesterday. I think we need to start bringing somebody in and to support the county court and, I think that's, and I don't agree with you. I see it, there's tons of different places. If you've seen one county, you've seen one county. There's not they're a lot different than cities, and I know you spend a lot of time in cities, but when you get to the county level, there's a lot more nuance. And it's just like the sheriff's departments versus the police departments. And so there's just more nuance in county government because I think it's run more so by elected officials. And I think there's lots of positives to that and there are some negatives, but I think that's the entity that we're working within. And we need to strive to be as professional as we can, but not lose what our organization is.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is facilitate getting us to a place where you have your job responsibilities and we can come back and, lay out the job responsibilities of the, the position that I'm in right now. Recognizing that you've got 3, 4 other elected officials in the room, and those 4 all run departments, and all 4 of them have requirements they must have in order to be in the position. Sure. Right, I mean, there's certification, there's continuing education, there's a whole host of things that they have to have in order to even fill that job, whereas the 3 of you have no certifications whatsoever, from nothing, right? I mean, it's, again, I think that's where you're seeing this role facilitate that. And I understand there's a significant difference between the county and the city, just having 4 elected officials that are busy doing their things and, they're not the same as, the department heads that report direct. I mean, there's that, certainly that component, but the getting this defined exactly how you want to ultimately do that is very important when you're recruiting somebody, because if it's going to be a chaotic situation, they're not gonna want to be, you just have trouble recruiting that. And you can't recruit until you know and have those things known. That's
Perfect. So let's start at kind of some of the ideas I brought up and we can go through them and see where everybody
And I
stands.
understand, attend department head meetings, I don't think there's any problems with that. Wanting you going through and doing those things, right?
Okay.
County court hiring the department heads, and I assume that means county manager will give some input, or county administrator, whoever this, what you want to call this position, is gonna just provide input, that you guys make the call on all department heads.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I think the manager needs to put it together, bring a report for it.
Yes.
And
In the court.
totally have to work it out.
Or we're hiring the department.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Okay, it's the department, okay, it's no.
Yeah, typically what you see with the administrator is you guys hire the administrator. It's rare that you find them hiring, if they got an administrative position, I think it would be the exception, not the rule. That the administrator would be just giving you, here's my input, you guys hire.
No, it's like you said, you had, what was it, 11? What was it that you just said the other day, you had 11 applications, or someone it talked about, it, and you had honed it down to, I can't remember who
It's
it
like
was.
facilities.
Yes, to 3.
I'd like to see,
I think that's good.
yeah, get it down to the shirt, the lower level and then. we can move
Yeah,
forward.
but that's the hiring process, not the hiring decision.
Yeah.
The process we have right now,
Well,
you
but
guys,
Andy finished up.
we have, the process right now for department heads is you ratify them, you can participate as much as you want to in that process. And since there could be more than one of you in the process, it provides for an elongated process. So, for example, facilities director would be 3, at a minimum, 3 different panels. Could be more. We're gonna get folks out of the sheriff's office, we'll get folks out of the courthouse building, we'll get somebody maybe out of the DA's office or whatever, since they're gonna be over at the Justice Center as well, and a few of the other ones. We have 6 different folks involved with that. I would be involved with that, you guys involved with that. At the end of the day, if the person is responsible for the performance of an individual isn't making the hiring decision, That's a bad system. You're setting that person up to fail. The idea of you ratifying that, you might be involved with the hiring, I think, no problem with that. If you don't think it's gonna be a good fit for whatever reason, and I bring it to you, and the idea of this position, maybe something they didn't think was gonna work, that would not be a good thing. But you wanna have the autonomy to be able to go through all of that. We've already had some of these positions where you guys have expressed zero. Zero. So how's that gonna work? Then you say you want to review them. You know, I've gone back through the files and looked at the reviews, they haven't been reviews at all, they've been discussions. You know, a discussion is not a review, you've got to go through the whole process now. You know, we talk about doing a 360 review of the department heads, that includes you guys being a part of that review. I've got department heads that say they haven't talked to you guys independently and shown you, shown you here in the courtroom when our meetings, how would you provide a review to them? So you would have to be far more involved in the process than you have been. And I don't know, I see all of this that you want to be involved with, which in my judgment is where you need to be involved. Talk about 20, 30 years out. You need to be involved in these committees, you need to be involved in the legislation that's getting passed, and we're ultimately held hostage to, because you're not necessarily getting in at the front of the game, you're getting in at the tail end. And you're micromanaging the tail end as opposed to getting up and waiting on the front end. That's where I'm pushing you guys to go as an organization. That means being in sales, that means being on this committee, that means developing relationships with other county commissioners, with sheriffs and others, collaborating again at the leadership level, not micromanaging a bunch of folks know what they're doing day to day with the direction, big picture that you just went through with the goals.
So I think we've moved on from you talking about hiring and firing employees, because I think we're gonna go into more of that information, and I think we all three agreed that the county reporter should work with the county manager to hire and fire. Is that what?
What I want to have is the information. I want to see the administrator give me an idea of who is applying for which department. I want to be able to have that option, to review it. I want to have that option to visit with the county administrator about it. If I am interested enough, I would like to be able to sit in and listen to that candidate that's going to fill that. But as far as making that decision, my decision will be my advice to the administrator. It's not to necessarily have that option of hiring or firing the person, because he's really going to work with the administrator more so than me. I just want to know who's going to work and understand it.
So
And if there was a severe objection,
Then I make it with the administrator.
exactly, and one of the things on your talk about the committee, I'm gonna tell you, so one of the things, obviously the water situation, people came to me. And so one of the things that Andy said to me on a late night talk was, what good is your power, Susie? You are this person, you are a commissioner, what good is your power? Think about how you can use your power to go out and change things, and that is exactly right. On these committees, or like you're talking, going to Salem and stuff, that should be our job. Because if we are having this power, how are we using the power, and what benefit can our community get from the use of that power? So I totally agree with your last little speech that you just did. And yes, we do need to look at that and think about what can we do, and like I say, AOC, there's someone that's gonna ring your bell, there's somebody that's gonna ring my bell, somebody that rings, and then we need to get together as a team and work on it and figure it out and be, again, proactive rather than reactive, which is exactly what you're saying. So, yes, I agree, and I do agree essentially to what you're saying, Seth, but I also agree to what Andy and Brian are saying, is do we need to read all the 11 facility things? No, if we're that interested, we ask for them, but I do agree fundamentally with what he says. And then again, in the end, on ratification, if the other two are good with it and I'm not, I'm gonna vote no.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, we should have a vote, that's my point.
But isn't that what a ratification is? It comes to county court
Yeah.
and we're the ultimate decision. And so Brian can give his input to Andy and say, I hate this guy, whatever. And then at the end, he's gonna vote no, and quite frankly, I'm gonna think about it, I'm gonna think about what Ryan has to say, and that's where we're, at the end, I think we're okay. But do we need all 11? No.
No.
But, and Andy has asked us, and I didn't realize he was asking and didn't answer, and he said, you don't care, and I went, no, I do care, I thought I told you that. But again, he has asked us, in all fairness, you have, and we've responded.
And what I
And
said,
it may not go to the extent of the court having to vote, because he's going to communicate with us.
Yes,
He's going to,
Yes.
and you're gonna say, yeah, I think that makes fine, and
yes,
he'll come to me and I'll say, no, I don't like that.
yes,
Or, well, however it comes out.
however it shakes
And,
down.
and it's,
But
it
yes,
goes from
yeah.
there.
but as long, I mean, as long as we're voting to hire or fire, or hire that person or not, then that, I'm totally fine with it.
I think
and
we're all
being-
talking about
and
the same.
being is a part of it, and I'll just give you the notice right now, I wanna be part of every department in fire. So just assume that, because last time I said you said that's a lot.
No,
That
I
was-
never did say that.
We send out emails to us all the time asking us to.
But I just, well, I'm just saying,
I never, you had to,
I
don't
want to be part of
wrong, Seth, I never said that. You guys are, it's by my contract that you ratify all department heads. If you agree you want to be involved in the process, you can be.
and what I'm saying is.
So let's
every
move, let's
department-
move on.
Yeah, I think we're all talking the same
Get there,
thing.
sorry, I have to department and fire department.
We've got that, court liaison assigned to major projects, I don't see challenge for that frankly at all, so.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as terminating department heads, again, the way it's set up right now is I'm looking to terminate, that would require your sign off on it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be you coming up to me saying we're terminating the person and I'm going, wait a second, what? You know, again, it's not a political decision, it's a performance situation, that's me bringing it to you. And if you guys have problems with the performance of somebody, you can bring that to me and we've had some of that. And we follow up on it and get it to, you know, hopefully make improvements and get things addressed. Again, you guys are, the ability to have ears, additional set of ears and eyes that, you know, people that maybe feel comfortable with you to speak, that's great. And so again, working as a team, so that you again deal with those issues, so sad. fine.
Yes.
Yeah, as long as we're part of the
Yes,
process.
and you have done that with me, because I've come with you to the department that I was concerned about, and you've done that, so yes, I agree.
Okay, so just keep that the way it is, ratifies the. You know, the review process again, what we've got set up is for the department heads. These are not, not elected, I'm gonna do reviews on to the elected, I'm gonna do reviews on, but on the all department heads that are appointed, I'd be doing reviews with them. We have, the extension and the museum, both of those folks have requested me to include them in the administrator review, 360 piece. We're gonna be 360 from, in fact, several different levels, in the court level, peers, and then into the departments that where they want to. So, see, community development, real good, he's wanting to get feedback from his staff, 360 designed to get him feedback from that. We've got one department that, I think it was Erica that talked about, you know, going out to different agencies, you know, she works with to get feedback from them to the services from, you know, it's being provided. Yeah, so it involves a lot, it's kind of stalled with, you know, a lot of the stuff that's going on. We have Christian going on next week. We'll go ahead and task the creation of this initial set, try to keep it as simple as we can, so that it's, you know, touching and getting out, and it'll expand into next year. And all of that will come back together. It will go through that with you, as well as the employee. If you want to be involved in the sit down, we can see if that's something we want to do.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying, we should be part of that, hearing the issues that you're hearing, so you know.
And I have thought about that too. I think that a report back, I think if the department heads, if they have a problem with it, they come to us, they talk with us about it. Sometimes when you open all that up, for all of us being a portion of it, it becomes, a whole session.
It would not, it would be an executive session. It would be that was choice, and again, Ryan, if that's not.
And I involved. No, it's not that I don't want to be involved in it, said, I just not sure that is, the smooth way to make it all happen.
Sure.
That, they have to be, that we are interfering with the process. I mean, if the department head has the option, if he wants our participation or not. I think that a lot of times, it becomes cumbersome.
Yeah, I think it's helpful for us as, again, part of this organization to understand what's going on, and that's where that manager, is the.
Now, how about we do this, I can talk to the department heads, get their feedback and to the degree of whether they want you guys sitting in that review, just limited to the 360, make an request, come up with something that ultimately,
Plan.
come up with something.
Or they could ask, if someone feels really comfortable with that poor person, then we make that accommodation. Maybe that department head doesn't feel. I mean, and I agree with you, let's get the input of the department heads. I think we have very good ones. Let's get their idea.
That may be Ms. Jane, but any of you that were there can certainly chime in, but I think what the feedback we got the last time we had this conversation, the process was you're either all involved or not involved. And we'll have to come back and get that clarified with them, in terms of what their thinking is.
I'm fine.
A quick comment then to that is, you're gonna ask department heads these questions about their involvement, but at the same time, one of them will be there. I always say that's intimidating. Quite frankly, so I think that needs to be a survey behind the scenes.
On either or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or,
Well, when you're referring to us being at the department head meetings, I mean, that was one of the reasons of the department head meetings without us there. So you could be transparent and open and talk about us or whatever, and not be intimidated. And so when we participate in that, we are back to the same things of not having that.
it's more fair after that.
What if they're intimidated by the manager?
I don't see that.
Well,
And if they do, then they come and talk to us.
If you think they are,
they are.
then do a survey. Do a private survey.
They're talking to us and saying, they're not even comfortable putting in a survey. I'm telling you, it's not something that,
An anonymous survey, we've already done one of those, and
yeah.
what was our high percentage number of opinions there was showing something, I'm just saying.
But I have been told that that's straw poll, that no one read the comments, and if the comments would have been put out, that there would have been a different interpretation. I have been told. I have no idea, because I only saw the results that you announced. I have no idea, but I have been told that. I'm not gonna say whether it's true or false, that's just a statement made.
I can give you a total of everything, because there's a few comments. They kind of go in a couple different areas, but.
We shared that with us.
Yeah.
There was a few that were.
So you have a problem with a court person being at a department head meeting? Do you have a problem with that, John?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of I appreciate all,
Well, is it?
yeah, I don't answer it. I appreciate all of you guys. But,
I'm not gonna.
yeah, I'm not really worried about it. I appreciate all of you guys. At the same time, though, I think it's wise to not have you there. But it's still not involved, yes, but also I just think there is an intimidation factor.
So
I
how
felt
do
that
we
for
know?
myself as an elected official,
I know, because I.
That's why, but that's why I've come to as many meetings as that I've possible since 2018 when I got elected, is because to be in the presence of.
So
It
how
takes a bit of-
how
You know,
do
it does.
we learn about everybody without being an department head? I mean, I'm not, how do we do that? I mean, I don't wanna be,
About what's going on there.
I don't wanna be intimidated,
there
I
has
don't
to be
wanna
a-
stop anybody, but.
Different meeting, I don't know, you know, and share things, I just think there's some things there, I mean, I've been to all these meetings for the last 6 years. And I know people are silent. And I see a lot of that when we were having 3-leader meetings there once a month.
But what about one meeting there, is that intimidating, do you feel that's still intimidating?
Yes. Say, yes.
Not to pick on you personally, John, there's no activity, you're not even accountable to us, and you're still intimidated.
I'm saying my growth through all this process since 2018, you know, because I still feel an accountability on a personal level with you guys. I do, you know, I've even been one that's volunteered for the review each year, as you know, I've sat with you and done it. I have never said, oh, you know, so I'm just saying it's something I had to walk through, and I'm probably not alone with that. And as an elected official, oh my goodness, but yeah, it's.
This is a perfect example. There you go, right here, what we're doing. So if we want to do another poll, and so it's clear, then we can find that out. And then I think that we should abide by whatever that poll brings out. I mean, we've had one, and that should be enough knowledge to us that they, you know, of what's happening.
I think there's something behind your straw poll type areas too, where as opposed to, Andy did it, it's like the fishing, an answer, like, I know if I go here, or here, or here, what answer I'm gonna get, somebody on my team, you know what I mean? And it's like, to me, the more if there's a certainty that we have, unanimous survey going on, oh, you can track who it is behind the scenes, and I think we pretty much felt that with this last one, the straw poll. They're like, yeah, I'm comfortable doing that. I can be comfortable doing that. Sure, there's gonna be few subscribers that might not be comfortable, but overall, I think that's a great way to get some kind of data from us as your employees or your.
I think the issues that I'm hearing though aren't straw poll. They're the unwillingness to share information with the county board that's being shared with the administrator position. And then trying to how is this, temper the information that goes from the employees to the next level, and that's what I'm most interested about. And I've heard that from numerous people, so.
You've given me a lot of food for thought, because my thing was just to find out. My thing was just to not intimidate, but to find out what was going on in the county, and maybe if we would have done this meeting, then I wouldn't have had that. You know what I'm trying to say? I hear you, and you've given me a lot of food for thought, and now I'm not sure where I'm going on this. I certainly don't want to intimidate you, but I also want to know what you guys are doing. So maybe we do that maybe on a quarterly, or not maybe even quarterly, but maybe half of the year, we all get together. Maybe that's a more comfortable scenario.
Continue to give the department
And
a little bit of that.
I'm totally fine with that. I just jumped in, and like I say, I didn't know anything. So my thing is come to a department head meeting, and I got to kind of meet you guys and hear your input. So, yeah, you really have a very John thing.
I like having the commissioners, one commissioner president at the meeting. If as either elected officials or department heads, we cannot stand up and tell the commissioner something, we have a bigger issue here.
Yeah.
And so that is part of our job as leading a department, is if I think something's happening, I need to have the guts to go say it and to say it publicly. And to silo our commissioners who are ultimately responsible to the public for what in part we're doing with the budget they set for our departments lands on them. So they need to have that input and that access. And we should not be, while I agree with the idea of having a manager or administrator who helps with the administration of that, you cannot silo the commissioners outside of that policy and have one person who's not answerable to the community, who is facilitating an agenda that either they think that the commissioners want or that they want. There has to be
checks and balances to the system and cutting them out of the meetings where those things are discussed is a recipe for disaster.
Well, and so I'm gonna put some more input there, that's why I think there needs to be a balance of it. Not an all one way or the other way. A, B, us, them, I think there should be a balance and opportunities for both. Like I said, if you're gonna turn around, it started because it was let's ask the department heads this. My mind goes, oh, well, one of you will be there, but we wanna ask the department heads about something with you. That's what drives, ask me that if you're not.
What if I feel comfortable giving that answer to the manager?
I still think there's.
What situation do they have to protect them, because that person's there every meeting? And what if they don't feel comfortable sharing with that person? So I think that's why no, the manager, the person that's, you know, that connection between the employees and, yeah, you're. Jiggy with you.
What's your thought? That's what she wants.
How sad is that, as a department head, you can't communicate with your supervisors? We all should feel extremely comfortable at that meeting with you there, with you all three there. As a department head or a supervisor, I want that open communication with my staff. If you've got a problem, I want to hear it. It's all about communication. You gotta hear that. I mean, I don't think we should ever be intimidated by it. I mean, I don't have that, but I've never been in, I'm elected, so it's maybe it's a little bit different from my thing, but I don't want that intimidation.
I'll just add that I'm not intimidated by any of you. I do appreciate having, and Doug said here, the department head meetings, but I also have no qualms about going to any one of your guys' offices and having a conversation. And I think that it takes relationship building, and I think that we need to focus on building relationships with the three electeds and the county administrator to make this function. There you go.
Not sure about that.
That's mic drop.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
And I think that's the piece, I think that, if it's been communicated that we can't go to, that's the issue, right? And I've never been, that is not, I don't feel that way, right? Like, I feel like if I had an issue, I could come in and you at any time, but there's apparently people who don't feel that way, and I don't know, where that communication has been heard. But there's also that piece of being able to trust that if we do go to the county administrator, that they're relaying that information accurately to you, right? So it just really depends on, and you're never gonna make anybody happy, but who are in those positions. Because your county administrator is really gotta be a direct reflection of the team that's going on. And if the employees or departments don't feel comfortable feeling like I can go to this person and say what I need or say what's happening, and that's gonna be reflected there, or that's gonna be reflected back to you in that way, that's where the problem is. So when there's no trust in the administrator, department head situation, that's where I think the issue lies.
And quite frankly, John, you're an Andy fan, a lot of people aren't, and I'm sorry, Andy, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings here. So I think what Erica says has a lot of weight there.
I like that too, and I like the building relationship.
Oh, I
Because
totally.
that is basically what's behind me saying 6 years ago, I knew I also needed to build relationships, believe me, I'm not intimidated by you guys. At this point, my world, you know what I mean, you can see the bantering that I do with all of you, even with him, during the events. But, yeah, I think another idea to throw out there would be, when we get to the liaison thing, because it kind of connects here with building that relationship. It would be nice to see you guys, like, every quarter, just did a check-in with us.
Yeah.
Really, it would be that. You don't have to get into meetings with a bunch of stuff. It would be great if we knew you were coming, vice versa, you knew you were gonna do it. We know you're coming. And then it's like, hey, great, anything on your mind, John, I can help with, that kind of thing. As opposed to, it's a meeting, or is it an open thing back and forth?
And I totally agree with you. I went to see Julie Martinez at Victims Advocate, and no commissioner had ever been at Victims Advocate. And I'm sorry, that's what I was told. And I'm sorry because I do feel that's an important thing. And I was very amazed at their team, and I was very impressed. So maybe that is something again that we need to do on a rotating basis. I'm not sure. You are, we do need to check.
And I don't want to speak for the department as a whole, because by no means. am
I don't think
the
you're in
spokesperson.
here.
And just being in those meetings, I would say that obviously as a whole, what you can see is we support having a county administrator position. We believe that that is a form of
Sure.
governance that the county needs to move, to progress and move forward. I think where the hangup is maybe is that trust piece in that it isn't an agenda that isn't the whole county's agenda. And does that make sense? I'm saying, so that goes back to that feeling of it's really important who's in that position versus, versus the governance type. I don't think that's the argument as far as the department head goes. I think we are in agreement that the governance that we want is as an administrator. I think that the other stuff's in the minutia of what that looks like.
Okay, others, some input, maybe?
I would say it sounds like we want to be at department head meetings.
Yeah, I'm fine, again, with you guys being at department head meetings, if you want to be.
Yeah.
If
I
someone
don't
doesn't
think,
want to be,
I again don't think all three.
No.
And I again don't, I really don't think we should speak. I mean, and again, I told you, I broke my rule. And that was wrong.
And there could be a part where you guys come, like the certain part of the meeting is just department heads, you know what I mean, and your time is a little bit delayed. So
And
that,
then we maybe leave, but.
so that those discussions that need to happen outside your presence, so everything feels comfortable are happening. But you get the department updates and you get, you're able to ask questions if that's what you guys need to do. Cause it's not that you guys shouldn't speak, but I think you guys should be, I'm more than willing to answer any questions, and that should be the time, like, hey, I have more questions about X, Y, and Z that's going on.
And maybe that's a way of staggering the agenda, that we can come and we can hear their reports, and then we can maybe leave. And then maybe that fits both of your agendas very well, and there's a compromise, and I'm a compromise person, so I think that's a very good statement, and John shaking his head, and Cheryl, so maybe we alter our agendas to reflect that. And then we come and we sit and we listen,
I think
and we get up and leave.
I think in the past, again, we're all adjusting to a change here. We have an administrative position that's come on board, but in the past, we all knew when we came to a meeting, there's three that were in charge. And that shifted a bit. Doesn't mean you're not in charge, but the direction of that meeting is here. You know what I mean? And so I think there's still that play of when you show up, who's the leader necessarily? It's continuing to make sure that we, as department heads, can come to that meeting and know it's gonna be still running here. And then he'll shift it around still, you know what I mean? That's totally different than it was just 2 years ago.
I think maybe to this, to what was just discussed, would be the agenda review. You're gonna go through all that, you've already gone through quite a bit of it already in terms of the work session, so it's something to repeat, whereas a lot of the departments weren't in on the work session, so maybe that's just your time to be there for that. We're talking about policy type stuff that's gonna come to the board as a whole, same type of thing, where it's the staff working through those types of things. We go through the department updates and the discussion about what's going on within the entire organization, maybe that's the time to ultimately be there and extend the time that, we're currently spending on that. It's roughly around 20 minutes, and that can be extended, so we can have a little bit deeper dive into those things and opportunity for, questions that you might have.
I would prefer to be part of the upcoming policy stuff. It's gonna be coming. I just see
The
that.
problem with that, though, Seth, is then we're going with one of you and your potential to meddle into it's supposed to be for all three of you, not for any one of you.
Yeah.
And so that really needs to be, I think, more your management team figuring that stuff out, the direction you guys are providing generally, back, to me.
I think Andy makes a good point there, and I think by doing it the way where you're talking, again, managing the agenda a certain way, we get a compromise for everybody. Because quite frankly, there could be a department head that has a problem that doesn't want to stay at TV, and they're gonna come to us privately, and, I mean, it's all a personality game and who you feel comfortable with. And again, this role here is popularity contest. You don't know who you're gonna get.
And those meetings are made up of so many different people. You have elected officials, right? Or elected officials aren't accountable to Andy, so to speak. They're not accountable to us, so to speak. They're their own people. They're elected by them. The rest of the community, the folks that are there, they're hired and fired by us or Andy. So you have a different makeup. It's not a city. It's a county. It's a different thing.
Yeah, my concern is,
So, I mean, you're very strong, and as are you. You know, well, you are. You are. Like you said the other day, I was thought California law enforcement, or, in this county, but you are now.
all I'm saying is, I think it's important to see what's going on, how the sausage is made. Because a lot of times there's parts of that once that goes through, if you don't catch something, you could end up with not understanding how you got to where you are.
And maybe the check-in is having a follow-up meeting with you guys. So there's any of this policy type stuff that we're dealing with, any of the agenda items that go beyond. So just the agenda that's there for action, if you've already seen work session monies and staff, some time that's spent just speaking with the three of you, with legal, to go through, here's the stuff that we're working on policy wise, we want that.
Well, my expectation would be that the person in your position would report back to us on what's happening. And I wouldn't necessarily have to be there,
Yeah, I mean,
unless I wanted to, because I don't want to, I run business a very long time, so do you. And it's difficult to have so many people involved in running that business. It's gotta have a chain, it's gotta have, an org chart that works down to everybody is responsible for their job.
did anybody ever tell you not to come to a meeting though?
Be lonely.
Like underneath, you're the owner, like I would say we're the owners of the business, right? And then we hire people then to run that business as efficiently as possible. And would you ever be comfortable with not being, and I know the answer to this, which I know you're Brian, not being part of any of that process that you wanted to do?
Well, but my position was, I'm the owner and I'm sitting back here and I have other people that are out doing the work. I'm not that I'm not working either.
Yeah.
But I'm not micromanaging them. Hopefully I have the people that are working for me that can take care of that.
But I think
And
you
bring the
bring
bigger
bigger cost
things to
what's
me.
going on and you don't just,
But that's my option, is to do that.
that's all I'm looking for.
Well, we're making it a policy that we're there.
You don't have to be, you're not required to be there, Brian, it's just giving us the ability to be there, that's all we're talking about.
But I think too, in these department head meetings, I think that was maybe our impression in the beginning was we had this discussion with our administrator, and then our administrator has the overall, discussion or notes or summary of what we discussed with you guys. So I mean, there is a communication channel. So
Somewhat, but I think it's super important to hear the individual's point of view, and I'm fine with Susie's point of not talking, I don't need to sit there and interrupt the meeting every 5 minutes. But I like to see what the facial expressions are when somebody says something, their body language when they say something, I don't want to just hear back, oh, they said yes. I think that's extremely helpful for me to know where we are as an organization, where we're headed, and if like to Susie's point, if we need to come back later and we see something in the meeting, it's probably not, the meeting's probably not the right time to bring that up. And to sit back and be able to just observe and then have a conversation later, I'm totally comfortable with that, but not being involved. And I agree with you, Andy, that first part where we've already gone over everything. And then there's the other part, that you're just rehashing all that stuff. Totally agree. On the other stuff, I want to be there for that. And again, we're not required to be there, and I'm happy to, I can put some duct tape on my mouth, because I do have it. Occasion to just talk, but I want to see what the process looks like, and I'm happy to be a quiet observer. if that helps the process.
So let's move on.
I got one question. You should all be asking me because ORS 26-1010 says, duties of the sheriff. The sheriff is the chief executive officer and conservator of the Beasley County. So you guys all report to me.
Done.
He's the executive officer, I'm the chief law enforcement. Sheriff.
John, I'll report to you and Carrie, I will.
Okay.
It's all that.
Okay, so,
I think that we just have a little bit of agenda trying to be on, and I think we can achieve what everybody
Yeah,
wants.
what,
But I don't agree with on the policy or that, but I do agree with Seth's comment on department heads being able to watch body language, and I communicated that to you last night with a particular employee, that I was feeling happy because I thought the body language had changed, and I never said anything to that person, but that was communication. I don't know that you would have came to me with that communication, but that's just something that I noticed. And it made me feel it. Otherwise, I was gonna see what that person does.
so I think next up for me, is if it works for you, is I can go ahead and make a markup, get this back out to you. We can talk about it in a work session, so we can capture
We're
everything.
all this hour together.
Yeah.
And I think that this is very good, yeah. I think you have a very good structure right there.
Okay. Next item here, that you wanted to speak to was the review and discuss commissioner / judge compensation. The sent out to you, and we have that, which we pulled out, real quickly.
maybe not quickly.
So she can pull it out.
Brian, you know, I feel good because we're both the same back, and if we weren't, I really would upset.
It may be a little small for Seth to see on his phone, but it's an Excel spreadsheet that has all 36 counties and their population, whether they have a county administrative manager, or
So we're in good.
another type of thing, whether you're a board or a county court. And then total number of board members, et cetera, then it works over to what is the annual salary paid for the commissioners, what is the annual salary different paid for the board chairs. I've highlighted, I think it's about 2010, 11, 12, something like that, counties that have similar size as you, as Crook here, and then, you know, it's highlighted in green. So you got Hood River, Curry, Jefferson, Union, Crook, Wasco, Tillamook, Malheur, Clatsop, Lincoln, Columbia. And I've taken I come up with an average and a high and a low for those. And then together with those, I've added issues that's adjacent, you know, call it competitor, what have you. And at the very top, did you see that up front? No, this one doesn't have that. And this is the version I sent Sarah last night, and this morning went in just to come up with the average. The average for those comparable counties that are in green plus Deschutes County is, for the commissioners, is 66,296. So it's pretty close to what you're paying now in Crook.
That's
$200
your,
difference. Pardon?
that's your average,
That's the average.
and it's based on the population.
Well, I got them organized by, yeah, the ones that I'm comparing to are relevant population too.
Okay.
And then the average for the board chair is 76,300. The high of those counties for the commissioner seat is Deschutes at 125,000. High for board chair is Crook at 133. So, you know, in the comp study, what I mentioned to you is without the full job description of that, we kind of put that off to the side. Going to you, we're going to end up having this discussion about, you know, the roles and so forth, and whether you're full-time, part-time, you know, that type of thing, as you think about going forward. Vance can bring that in as something that, you know, what he's shared with me is, he brings that forward as the analysis to get to the compensation committee, and hopefully all the electeds, except for Carrie, I think all the other electeds go through that committee, and then the three of you, and then that committee reviews the information, and then makes a decision, recommendation back to the county court. The county court then can do whatever it wants to do. They can take the recommendation or amend the recommendation. But historically, you've taken and adopted the recommendation. So,
I totally agree with that. That's what we're doing with our employees, and we should be the same way. Okay,
and,
totally agree.
and so what we'll do is, this would be part of that information. The thing that we need to clarify, are we looking at you guys being full part, that may weigh in, because we look at the comparables, there's a number of these that have,
Like Jefferson is 21.81.
yeah, there is, like Wasco's all,
That's their hourly.
their halftime.
I'm sorry, I'm on a totally wrong thing.
Yeah, Wasco's halftime, 2 people, now her is 2 part-time, 1 full-time. Without the administrator position. And then there's several that I believe, and we just need to clarify this within, are they full or part-time? Just make sure that the data that we have is solid. And are you okay with using the green, Ken? Green highlighted plus the shoots, or do you want it to
I
be
feel-
expanded at all?
I feel that if the employees are subjected to a compensation study, then the compensation committee should look at that and decide what they want to hone in on, and then that should be their decision.
Okay.
Because if we're gonna expect the employees, we should expect the same of ourselves. That's just me.
And I think Vance is using a similar set of comparables together with the shoes and.
Yeah.
And that market, so. Okay,
I agree.
all right. As far as the county administrator job description, I
Okay,
don't know if you guys want to talk any more about that or not.
where are we on? I know we have that document.
Covered a bunch of it here just a little bit ago, and at the end of the day, I don't know that anything really changed much. Just a clarification.
Yeah, again, I think it should be called the county manager.
Yeah, county manager's fine.
Did you give us that in the handout, or this is in my folder from before your county?
I think we sent it out again.
I thought you did, but you have it?
What's
Is
it
it
called?
all- Yeah, what is it called? Maybe that would help.
Look for the memo that's dated January. No, there should be a job description that is in there, but maybe it didn't.
Is this the one you want?
Yeah, that one right there.
I have everything on that thing.
You do? Okay, here, Sarah, I know you want
No, we
to
haven't.
much better than me.
I'm gonna go grab a drink of water.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for being here, okay? You can never quit on. You're changing. I'm sorry, John, I know it's slavery, but what can I say?
Talk to the sheriff.
I'm fundamentally against slavery, but not in Sarah's case.
Sheriff's in charge.
At least I'm honest with you. won't.
When they can't agree, I take over.
Exactly.
All of these ones down here, we're looking through.
Okay, thank you very much.
No.
That's, Brian, you are my savior of everything, because you're just like me.
I can do this now.
So Brian and I moved from iPads to laptops, so now we can be totally, idiots on both ends. And then, like you say, I lost an entire email, I have no idea how. I wanted to, I lost it. I thought just, it screws with my head, I just don't, I guess I'm not.
Sorry, did you see that's on the website?
Yeah. Oh, now Andy even needs help. I am feeling empowered. I'm empowered.
Exactly, I think that's what people, because they're always complaining that they can't ever find the living, I'm like, no, really, I saw that. Right?
I
I think that my. That's all that has.
There you go, like the little angel or something.
Yeah, I just say Susie control this meeting. I guess this is my home, Jesus Swisher.
I would like to add because of class. Yes. Some, with your calendar and all those factors, so.
Yeah, she's probably not. You wanna try to change anything in your calendar? It's like, I'll think about it.
Yeah, I'm.
Well, depending, if you're using the Office 365 online version, or if you have like a desktop version, they have different features. Some are easier than others, mine is a little hard to use for specific numbers.
Right, but
I'm not sure it's way with that.
Well, see, and what I'm wondering is if you have the online one. I feel like they try to.
Because the doesn't work better, Sarah has my calendar, so I must have one, which is how it's doing calendar.
Well, like, even you, well, you can share it, but there's just different features, depends on where you're at. I like the online one because I can, that's way more, but there's function on that, on that, work with, so it's nice.
Yes.
yeah, right now it's back, let's get back.
Cause I do need, I was gonna try to make that water thing at 1:30 then.
Yeah, we'll wrap up that, dude.
Oh,
Yeah, we don't have this, we have to be out of this room
I knew.
I do.
and cleaned up and leave by 12:15, yeah.
Okay.
So shoot for noon, it'll take some time to clean up.
Yeah, I won't, I'm gonna probably have to get the dogs to the doctor.
Change the title and
So
stuff.
I have mail order calling them. This little miniature dog stuff. It's George Troy. Troy shows up, it's nice and moving. Just likes Troy, so we call it. So Archie is very excited that Troy's coming, so he can rent his house in all afternoon. I love getting French chicken.
And I could. So, I know that something is a vote.
Yes.
There you go.
I wish I could have some pictures for you because Troy just. It's Archie, it's just like staring at.
Oh my goodness, he's a stoic order calling.
I said, Troy, I need a French chicken. I can't even throw one French chicken. We're good, let's go.
Yeah, so I'm understanding a change to the county manager. So that's a simple change. The areas that I'm aware of that are, and I'm kind of looking at the role of the county judge board chair. That's the document that follows the roles and responsibility of the county commissioners, all members. And there's a document some put together. And there's the discussion of the, under those roles of all this stuff, particularly with intergovernmental relations and so forth. One thing that isn't in there, and for all members, is the communication channel. You know,
Are you talking assess description or this?
And I think my description was in a situation where we were looking at the county administrator, which I don't think has worked. And so I think that I'm happy to take part in that, but I think and again, maybe again, I'm 1 out of 3, but I think that there's a lot of positive things. But having that person replace the county court versus support the county court is not what we need. So
well, if I replace the county court, the 3 of you be gone.
yeah,
So I don't know what the heck you're talking about.
you know, the responsibilities, you know, it's
No, that makes no sense. I don't replace you guys at all. I'm accountable to you.
Yeah.
Accountable to you, I implement your policy and so forth, but I don't replace you. You guys are the ones that are in charge. The question, you know, here in terms of administrator versus manager, manager's fine, no challenge with that. As I look through, there's 3 areas that I haven't spent any time on. Intergovernmental relations, economic development, and the communication stuff. Those are all gonna be done through the county judge. And the county judge has all these things to do. So these were bringing in the administrator role. Those things, to a large degree, we talk about the intergovernmental relations, where people are, who's doing what. I've been asked to stay out of that, so I have, and that's why, you know, if there's a lack of that being done, that's, if you want that to be coordinated and at least maintained and so forth, and you guys take on and do those things, that's fine. And that needs, just needs to be part of the job description, so that it's getting done, because right now, I would say that we're not necessarily on top of it. And to your point, Susie, you know, there was no onboarding, there's no explanation of what all that is. That's, again, I've been asked to stay out of that. If it's to make sure that that gets done, then we make that part of the job description. As it relates to communications, we don't have that teed up really well. We've got, you know, some, you know, it's taking that on. That's how it's set up here. Is that how you want it to be versus do you want it done differently? Right now, we've got Sarah, you know, as this communications position and trying to get her moving forward with things. And where we try to do that, we've run into challenges, just setting up a Facebook page and trying to put a Facebook post up led to a, you know, significant issue that shouldn't have been an issue at all. So we're trying to get that figured out. We need, you know, I don't have that
So are
authority.
you referring to wanting to know what's being put up on the Facebook page? I just don't.
I'm just saying, you know, even moving forward and posting something in, simple, led to, you know, we're not doing anything right now. There is no plan, there is no strategy with it. We need to develop it. That is not in my court, that's in the court's court or assessment court. So where do you want that to reside?
Another thing besides on your communications, I also think, and I talked to Seth about this, and I'm not saying monthly or whatever, but some way we should be communicating to the press. Because it very much disturbed me that we were asking what is causing water contamination, and they put, and this is just an example, but they put a picture of the plant with our article, so we need to be much more proactive about our press releases, and maybe again, that's the problem. They're just reacting to what we did. We weren't proactive enough to go and visit with them and say, this is what we are trying to do. So I feel the press needs to come in and maybe we do need to do a quarterly report or something that says, hey, we're here, here's Crook County, this is what we're working on. Oh my gosh, the Justice Center's opening in July. I mean, whatever it is, but I think we need to handle our press release a little better. And I get random calls from the Bend Bulletin, and obviously I gave out bad information, but long story short, we need to be managing our press along with that. And I'm not sure that that doesn't maybe fit in your role, that we go to you or you ask us, are there any things that we need to be in the press? You know, I'm not sure, because it shouldn't be an opinionated thing. It should be a factual, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and right now, you know, I mean, ideally, at least in my thinking, at least from a starting standpoint, would be in three, we can, you're working as a team with the organization, what is important to get out press, out of communications person that can take that and is the professional to figure out the channels and communicate back, this is how we're getting it out, and that's all available, it's transparent, and it gets done. Right now, there isn't that.
And
right?
maybe an executive session, that's the place to just put a little agenda of communications. And so we just say, hey, Brian, Seth, Susie, is there anything you think we should be communicating or whatever? Maybe, I don't know what it is, but I don't think we're handling our press well.
Well, and I think that could be done through the administrator and then through the.
Sure, and again, it's a factual thing.
Through Sarah, and because there are gonna be times that individually we're talking with Sarah, she'll put something together. I think it's real important that we have actual documents that go out as press releases. So
No,
that we
I
have that chain of push.
I totally agree with Brian. I mean, I just think we're lacking in that.
And share it, and Sarah can share it individually with all of us. We can all comment. It's not, and give our comments back to her.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is communicate the organization position, not the position of any one of you.
No, it's factual. It has to be factual.
Yeah.
That's what the public, it's up to the public to form their opinions, not for us to form their opinions for them. We are just factually saying, and that's why, again, it disturbed me because the picture of the plant with the water story what are you gonna think if you're glancing at it? You're gonna think, oh, look at that plan, look what it did, and that was not our intent. So we need to be more proactive.
And if there's opinions that you guys wanna get out individually, we can set up, so that can get done as well. I think that's the challenge is, there needs to be that delegation of authority that we can do that, implement it, if you don't have that right now, so.
No, and we need to establish that, I don't know if that's you with Sarah and then communicating to us, I'm not sure exactly how it works. Because again, I'm not talking about opinions, I'm talking about factual, this is what we'll do. And maybe we do it every 3 months or every 4 months or something, but this is what the county, to let the people kind of know what we're working on. And to weigh in, and then it's up to them to call Brian or me or Seth and say, hey, I just read that you're doing this and this is wrong or this is right or whatever, but I really feel we lack in our press. What is it, Sarah?
I know that you weren't on board just yet, but we did go through, an initial communications plan at the end of October, and we talked all about all this.
Okay, so maybe we need to get that plan and adopt it, maybe put it on executive session, we hash it over and we adopt it, and then we have a formal communications plan. Maybe that's the answer, that's perfect. I'm just saying, we need to do something better.
As long as we're the last checkout on it.
Sure.
On the deal, that's my big issue, is I don't want a bunch of content going out.
All she needs to do is email it to us and we'll.
That's all.
Great.
My question.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Signs off on it.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to work through that, because there's stuff that, what I'm used to seeing is there's a schedule, communication schedule, a plan that, gets worked out by Sarah, that, the whole group would, as a team would see, you would see a schedule, here's things that we're working on, and there'd be an article for this, an article for this, and it'd be done in advance, there'd be a social media campaign that shows all the different things that are ultimately being done. You guys sign off on that, and the idea is you're gonna wanna look at an individual post before it goes out. That could be a problem, because that gets down to micromanaging to a point of, is that really where you want to spend your time? Versus you're setting a framework for that, you're signing off on the program and process. If there's certain things that we want to see as a group, we can write that into the plan. If there's a simple thing that she's amplifying something, as an example, comes up unexpected, health department posts, the sheriff department posts. You want a good thing is to amplify those things so they get seen, and that's what she's doing. You've got him doing posting, you've got the health department doing posting, you've got a bunch of other folks in this organization doing posting already, and there hasn't been a peep from anybody about what those posts are. And we make one post, you think that if the world was gonna come, stop the prevention, we gotta get back to
Again,
giving her the authority.
about is having the ability, you just laid it out there, that we have the ability to see what those posts were over the next X amount of time, and that's.
What was the post about?
It was Wear Red Day, National Fun Holiday. It was an initial test post to our brand new Facebook page. That's all it was. It was a nice, cute little flyer.
It wasn't about the heart, it was February's heart month.
It was February 3rd, so it was National Wear Red Day in honor of women with heart disease and.
Okay.
But again, I just wanted to say, if you're gonna post things, let's go over it ahead of time, so we don't.
So I'm saying there's gonna be thousands of posts, and you can't be holding up staff to do review of every one of them.
Has our communication plan been ratified, or it's just in the talks? It hasn't. So why don't we bring that forward whatever session it works, let's look it over, send us the material, and then we make a decision and we go from there. Again, I just think that was a misrepresentation of the paper, and if we had something else that would have been factual, and like Brian says, if there's documents, I totally think we can up our game. So
Was
let's
it just the paper that wrote it, that article? Was it that?
it It was a Central Oregonian, they had the plant, and then they had me send the letter to DEQ, which is a total misrepresentation. And I'm not, whatever, but it was a total misrepresentation of our intent. And so therefore, if we would have got out of the forefront on that, they didn't pick up that we were not saying it was mining, we were saying we have pollution, we want an answer. That was what we were saying.
Okay.
It's time, yeah,
Is there any other?
but let's bring that forward and let's discuss it, let's just up our game. We anticipate that maybe when we do something like that, we put a press release out, and we're gonna do this, and we are, that's the secular.
Yeah, we're only doing, we've just started doing a couple little press releases for bigger ticket items, and so I'm not familiar with what's in the paper, what that article is. I'm not sure who said what, where, who spoke to who, that is from.
No, I know,
Yeah,
I'm not blaming you at all, I'm just saying, I think the paper did it, they had the picture, and they did it. The only problem is it changed the whole intent and the purpose of us, so we should have probably been upfront, or I don't know what we should, maybe that's a newspaper, that's just the way.
I think it's just being proactive.
Yeah.
We're proactive. Newspapers aren't so active. They have their story. We
Yeah.
don't know the release. They still make that. They do. They
We probably can't control what pictures they use. Unless we send them a photo.
Yeah, that's the thing we can do. The media's changed so much today that it's not like it was 30 years ago.
I quite frankly think with the Central Oregonian, yes, the material that we give them is what they're gonna post.
Yeah.
And I just think that he was filling the page, and that was the picture he put. I don't think he had malicious intent in that at all, but it directed our thought. If you looked at that, automatically said money was causing that, and that wasn't what we were trying to do. And that's just an example, there's probably even more examples, and I think Brian's totally right, we're proactive, but just bring the communications thing, and again, if it's factual, I don't see any problem with any of it. We put that.
And out of all the election material that they covered for me, I've never been asked once, I think about what picture they put in there, and it's like, oh, okay, well, they put that in, I mean, it's, I've never sent him one, and he'd asked a couple times for specific, but otherwise something appears, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay.
and it's maybe just
So
that
we
we're
just need to
just,
clarify,
we're just,
please run that by.
because I don't think anything is malicious in there, I think it just happens to be that he has a space and he pops something. So, yeah, we should have anticipated it, we didn't, but we'll figure it out, we're getting bigger and better.
Okay, she'll develop those relationships with the press.
I already have a media, or an email list that I created since I started, and anytime that we drop or hear of another name gets dropped in there, and that's one of the main email lists I use when I send out the public notice and the agendas and any kind of stuff.
Like I say, it was a hoax, but, oh well, when you're saying there, I just think it's a matter of him trying to get those things, I don't think it has anything else to do. Okay, I am sorry that I can't help you with tables. Yeah, we have to get out of here by 12:15. And I'm very sorry that I can't help, but I gotta deal with dogs.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy.
I would feel they face this way.
I talked to you earlier, you really.
I am not ever gonna be that clean up.
How are you?
Yeah. Thank you.